With the first pick, welcome into the Fantasy Rant podcast. I am your host, Dan Baker, accompanied by my co-host Mason Beck and Evan Gooding. On this episode of Fantasy Rant, we got week 2 in the books and week 3 right around the corner. We're going to be previewing every upcoming game in week 3, and we'll give you our starts and sits of the week. But before we do that, we got the question of the day. You know the answer, put it up in the comments. If you're the first one to get it right, we will post your answer. All right, so the question: how many running backs have had 500 rushing yards and 500 receiving yards in the same season over the past 3 years? Bonus points if you can name those running backs. All right, let's get straight into it, boys. We got a big week 3 coming up, starting off hot with probably hot for Mason's Niners here. We got the Giants at San Francisco. It's going to be a 10-point spread in favor of the 49ers. And the over-under is 44.5 points. Right now, looking like Saquon Barkley is going to be out. I think he's listed as doubtful right now, but really not looking like he's going to play. We got Wan'Dale Robinson. He is starting to practice in a limited capacity, still listed as questionable right now. And we got Brandon Ayuk with the shoulder injury. He was not practicing, understandably so. He looked like he was in some pain. Came back in the game. Hopefully he can get out there and not aggravate that shoulder injury. But he's listed as questionable right now. Make sure we're going to go through the injury report. Make sure that you guys are keeping up with the injury report. It's just Wednesday right now. A lot of guys are getting some veteran days of rest. So make sure you're checking that out as it goes along. But as far as the starts and sits of this game, right now, I don't know about you guys, but on the Giants side of the ball, I am only starting Darren Waller. Right now, we got Matt Breida filling in most likely for Barkley. I'm sitting all of the wide receivers. And Daniel Jones was the QB1 on the week in week 2. However, he is my sit of the week. I think this is a trap game after a big game. Even with the Rams performing pretty well against the 49er defense last week, I am not comfortable enough to start Daniel Jones. There's a couple of injuries on the offensive line for the Giants as well. So I'm really thinking this San Francisco passing rush is going to get Daniel Jones frequently. What do you guys think? Are you starting anybody at all on the Giants? Or are you even starting Darren Waller? Mason, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so honestly, Waller, I'm still starting. The wide receiver spot there is still a little questionable. Waller is definitely the most reliable target for Daniel Jones. Saquon, he might have actually been ruled out already. I haven't checked the last couple of months. But so Matt Breida is actually going to be my sit of the week. And one, because I don't think he's that talented. Well, he is talented, but not to the point of solid fantasy production, in my opinion. Niners have honestly pretty much stuffed the running game so far. Najee, week 1, had very big trouble getting anything going. I think he only had 1 carry over 10 yards. And then, Kyren Williams had a decent, he had 52 yards, but on 14 carries. Niners have been pretty good at stopping the run. When you got a backup running back that people don't have a ton of confidence in already, no matter who they're playing, he's definitely my sit of the week. And I would be looking elsewhere even if you're desperate.
And really quickly, you are right. Barkley was officially ruled out as of 5 hours ago.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, he's out too. Definitely starting Waller, and I'm also going to sit Breida. Not as comfortable sitting Jones. I do think that this is a game where he could have some decent points, but I also don't have too many shares of him, so not something that I personally have to worry about. What I do have to worry about, though, is my lack of wide receivers in one league, so I am going to be starting Jalen Hyatt in a league. It has gotten that boys.
Hoping for that big boom play downfield. Outside of that, I think you're going to be SOL there.
Yeah, it could be.
All right, and on the Niners side of the ball, I'm starting everybody. There's really not a starter that I would sit in this game, even if Ayuk with the shoulder injury, if he's healthy enough to play, I'm gonna put him out there. He started off that game hot with a few catches in the first drive, and then he had that shoulder injury. Really hoping he comes back, fully healthy, but, that might be a long shot. But, yeah, there's not a single player on the, Niners that I'm not starting. I would even be fine starting Brock Purdy as a back end QB. Really looking not to start Purdy if I can help it, but if you're forced into that situation, I think he could finish somewhere between QB 10 to, like, 13, 14.
I mean, I honestly think CMC is gonna. He's already been feeding off these defenses, but Giants' run defense is pretty awful. So I think CMC is gonna have a great week. Although there's no question on whether you should start him or not. Ayuk, I am a little worried about. Signs aren't looking the best. It looks like it might be a little worse of an injury than we kind of thought. I mean, he was in some true pain on Sunday off of some of those hits. You could tell like he was banged up. So even if he is, healthy and playing, I think he's gonna be out there more than a decoy than he is going to be an actual utilized weapon. It might be a week where Ayuk is your flex spot, but there could be some other people to start just because it's injury prone. I think Kittle's going to feed for that reason. He's my start, like my start in tight end of the week for start sits. He's had a couple two slow weeks, only 3 catches each game, and got like 30 yards ish the first 2 games. I mean, if Ayuk is not just more out there for a decoy, it's going to be Debo and Kittle because there's been lack of really any other wide receiver production from the Niners.
Yeah, and I think that's our biggest name in our starts of the week. When we're doing these starts and sits of the week, starts of the week more specifically, we're not going to be bringing up names like Christian McCaffrey or Justin Jefferson. We're going to try to dig a little deeper for you guys, put up some names. It is hard at the tight end position, though. It's basically guys you're going to want to start, or we're kind of dumpster diving here. So I do think Kittle's by far our biggest name in the starts of the week, but I agree with you. Every time there's a 49er wide receiver that's missing, Kittle is leaned on much more heavier. So I think that's a great start of the week.
Yeah, that's how I see this game playing out as well. I agree with Mason. I think that shoulder injury is a little bit more significant than and he's going to cut into his ability on the field on Thursday, but especially because it is such a short game, or such a short
That's
time
true.
off.
That's very true.
No time for recovery.
If Ayuk is healthy, what are you guys doing with them? Does he
I'm not
make the
starting.
lineup?
I think he's a sit, and I also think Purdy's a sit as well.
Okay,
Yeah,
Mason.
I think Purdy's a sit just because of the game plan, how it's going to be. I mean, this could just me being a Niner fan, but I really do think we are going to destroy the Giants.
I would agree.
Giants defense has been pretty ugly, and we have had one of the top-looking offenses in the league. So, I mean, you know what that ends up to. Great offense against poor defense. It's going to be fantasy points and high scoring. So, I mean, CMC Mitchell might even be an interesting play if you're desperate at running back this week.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, if they blow him out, he could get some more work there. I still think that they're going to throw the ball early on, and that's where Purdy's going to get his points. But I agree that this is likely going to be a blowout. If the Cardinals can start off 20-0 against the Giants, imagine what the 49ers are going to do to this team. So, all right, this moves us on to the Sunday slate. Mason, you got this one.
All right. So we're starting off with Buffalo and Washington. At Washington, Buffalo is favored by 6.5 right now, with the over/under being 44.5. As far as the injury report goes for that game, Dawson Knox is dealing with a back injury, and he was not practicing at all today. And then Logan Thomas, also another tight end, but for Washington, is a little questionable this week with a head injury. That's more something that we'll kind of watch throughout the week. Obviously, Logan Thomas is already most people aren't even starting him as is, but if you are desperate at the position, it could be something to watch over. And then going to actual like fantasy parts of it, on the Buffalo side of the ball, for our starts and sits of the week, obviously we got starting Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. Nobody's going to question that. We got James Cook over there who had a stellar week 2. Buffalo actually used their running backs, which is what fantasy managers have been hoping for since Josh Allen's been there. And then on the sixth, and then I mean, we could even argue Gabe Davis. He's kind of a fringe starter sit, and I kind of want to know what your guys' opinion on if you think you should be throwing Davis in your lineup.
Yeah, Gabe Davis.
Davis.
He's a big sit for me. Big sit for me, and I'm going to start Kincaid over Davis if I have the option to. And I don't know why Kincaid's even on the sit list. His progression is showing true, and he's putting up points every week. I'm happy with his performance. I'm happy with what he's doing, and I think his trajectory is on the right path. So,
Where do you think Kincaid finishes on the week?
On the week, oof. He's sniffing. He's sniffing for a TD too. With the amount of targets that he's getting as well. I know Knox is really the red zone target that they're going to go to from the tight end there, but I think he's got potential for another 5 catches and maybe 50 yards.
Okay.
Pretty middle of the road.
Yeah.
You can't complain. I don't think we can.
I think he's worth a start, especially if Knox is out. I mean, if Knox is playing, it's a little, questionable because when you got split tight ends, they're going to have up and down weeks. But
I mean, he's been split this whole time, and he's been doing well.
Well, yeah, but I mean, they also had an electric week 2 passing game. Yeah. I don't know how that's going to carry over as much into Washington. I mean, Buffalo's still kind of a rough team to judge so far, in my opinion.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, if Knox is out, I agree. I don't think Knox is actually going to miss any time. But right now, like you were saying, Evan, he's got 10 targets over 2 games, 9 catches, averaging about 35 yards or so. So, that's pretty low-end tight end 1 territory. If you don't have one of the studs and your tight end gets 5 for 50, you'll take it. We'll take the 10 points. That's not terrible. And obviously, he does have the upside with his athleticism. But right now, I'm still sitting him. I'm looking for other guys with a little bit more reliable targets and touchdown upside. So I would still sit Kincaid. But yeah, and then Gabe Davis. It's one of the harder players to judge each week. He had a great week 2. He's 2 boom or bust though for me to start confidently in this matchup. I would say if you're looking at a tough opponent and you need a boom week, and you're in a 2 flex league, I would be comfortable throwing him in that specific situation. But it's got to be an upside play, and understanding that you might not get anything.
I mean, that's all Gabe Davis really is. I mean, I've been, the past couple of years,
Mike Williams.
Every time it seemed like he was going to have a big role, I'd put him in, and sometimes he'd get me 2 points, sometimes he'll get you like 20, or sometimes
even only good when he's on your bench usually.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's Gabe Davis.
Yep. All right.
Then on the Washington side of the ball, for the starts this week, we got McLaurin, Dotson, and B-Rob, who had a stellar week 2. And then on the sit side, we got Howell, Logan Thomas, Curtis Samuel, and honestly, I would add on Gibson as well.
I just typed it in there. I was like, why isn't Antonio Gibson not in there?
Gibson's usage is looking like it's going down massively, and I mean, his hands are terrible. He fumbles the ball so much. I think he's really a risk start, especially after B-Rob came off of a hot week 2. I think they're going to keep feeding him the rock.
Yeah. He's not getting as much of the passing work as I expected in Eric Bieniemy offense. With the game script last week, it was pretty much a shootout between them and Denver. Still only 3 targets, 44 yards. He did have a snap percentage of 48% in week 2. So that's a little promising, but you would have liked to see him actually do something with those snaps. So completely agreed on that. I do like Dotson a lot this week. With the Bills having Micah Hyde is questionable. Tre'Davious White's really their only stud in the secondary. So if he's on McLaurin for most of this game and Buffalo's up, I could see Dotson having one of those boom weeks. Hopefully he gets into the end zone. He's my wide receiver start of the week this week.
Yeah. I mean, Brian Robinson was probably the biggest surprise for me, like that, especially that game, you know. And I think I'm more mad at Gibson, not because he's not performing, but because he convinced me enough not to get Brian Robinson. Like I was passing on Brian Robinson because of how I thought Gibson would be in this offense.
I feel that.
I'm upset. But all right, let's taking the pain away, and we're diving right into Denver and Miami. Miami's favored by 6.5 points as well this game. Over under is set at 48. Let's dive into the injuries we got looking at. Greg Dulcich out for the hamstring. Jalen Waddle, concussion, not practicing Wednesday. I believe he does have time to get out of protocol, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, he's actually one of the players. He's one of the reasons why I'm starting Jalen Hyatt. So thank you, Jalen Waddle. Let's go into Denver side of things first and kind of dive into the fantasy start sits. Starting, we got Jerry Jeudy, Javonte Williams. You guys starting Russ Wilson, Cortland Sutton. I personally, I'm not going to be starting Russell Wilson, and Sutton is really just depends on the team, depends on the lineup. It's really tough. I'm trying to figure out a comp right now, and I don't know. But Troutman, biggest disappointment. I started him last week. I fell for the trap, and not going to be starting him again. So I agree with the sit on that for sure. What do you guys think?
If we have time at the end of this, I'm going to go over some of the waiver wire targets I had coming up before week 2. Yep. Troutman was the last name on the list. He was the third tight end that I was targeting. It was only because Dulcich was out, but that goose egg hurt. Luckily, I'm not starting him anywhere. And I mentioned in the video, I wouldn't start him, but he was worth the pickup just because he's going to dominate the snaps. But yeah, like you said, I'm also not starting Russell Wilson. In the vast majority of leagues, you guys can go out and find a streamer. We're going to touch on some throughout the show. Russell Wilson has upside because the defense hasn't been looking so great in Denver. I think everyone kind of anticipated this being a top 10 defense at least. But if Washington can put up 30-plus points on them, Miami's going to put up God knows how many points. So that's the only reason why Russ is interesting. I think he'd be a better DFS play than a redraft play. Cortland Sutton, though, I do think is worth a start, flex start at that. But most of the leagues we're talking about right now, they're going to be just your most popular. Your PPR, 2 flex, 2 wide receiver, 2 running back, 1 QB, 1 tight end. So in those types of leagues, I think I'd be fine throwing him as my second flex. I just think that there's going to be enough passing volume for him to PPR his way to 12 points or so. Not the upside play unless he falls into the end zone. But yeah, that's where I'm sitting on the Denver starters this week.
Yeah. What about you, Mason?
Wilson, I'm trying to avoid in most cases. 2 QB leagues, he's worth a start in my opinion. But, if you're in a 1 QB league, no, he should be on your bench. There's plenty of other better stream options I think you can find, at least in most leagues. Sutton, I really think he's going to be a touchdown-dependent guy. Jeudy had a slow week too, but he was coming back from injury. We weren't even sure if he was going to be playing. Jeudy, I'm still throwing him in every single lineup. You can't expect a guy to ball up after an injury. And I think when Rudy really gets going, that Sutton's going to not be much of an impact anymore. I mean, Marvin Mims even had I think is going to really start feeding into that second role as the wide receiver 2 role. Even when Dulcich is back, I don't know. I think Sutton he's interesting at the flex, at least for now, but there is other options. I would rather be taking the risk of starting, like we just talked about him. I'd take the risk of starting Gabe Davis over starting Wilson.
Who's got the cops after them?
That's me over here. We're in Seattle.
That good old Seattle, downtown Seattle, boy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just took a look at it. Cortland Sutton had 89% of the snaps, where Jerry Jeudy had 68% of the snaps. Marvin Mims down at 24% of the snaps. Mims will just be that downfield threat, maybe catch a bomb. But right now, it definitely looks like they're easing Judy in to the lineup. I kind of expected him to miss week 2. But if I like that they're easing him in. Hopefully, he doesn't re-aggravate that hamstring until we see Judy start to pass Sutton in the snap percentage. I think Sutton's like a safe floor play at the flex rather than an upside pick, a guy who's going to win you your week.
Agreed.
All right,
And
back
moving
to
on to
me.
Miami.
What's up?
Moving on to Miami.
That's right. Oh, just kidding.
We got our start sets.
Taking over. Okay.
We are going to be starting Tua Tagovailoa, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle if healthy, and Mostert. I'm actually gonna put Smythe up there too, only because of my 2 tight end league. So if you are in a deep tight end league,
Get out of here. We're here for the people. We're not here for your 2 tight end league.
Smythe is not bad though. Smythe is not that bad. Is all I'm saying.
I must have played in, I don't know. I play in at least 6 a year. This is like my at least 15th year playing fantasy. I don't think I've ever been in a 2 tight end league outside of your league.
Well, you're welcome for the competitive nature of my league.
Oh, it's fun. I'm number 1 in the league, so I'm loving it, baby.
You are actually. But yeah, we got A-Chain, Barrios, and technically Smythe over here. But yeah, we'll see. What do you guys think about this?
We need A-Chain to start getting some snaps.
Yeah, but I don't know, man. I kind of like where Mostert's at. Like, it's like kind of don't touch the Mostert at this point. Like,
it is nice having Mostert doing what he's doing. I just have A-Chain in a couple leagues. Definitely looking to see that explosiveness coming out of the backfield. But especially with Jeff Wilson coming up soon, A-Chain's pretty much droppable. If it wasn't a keeper league that I had him in, probably wouldn't be on the roster right now.
Yep. Agreed there.
I had an interesting question. I mean, if Waddle is out, do you guys think Barrios or Craycraft are worth a flex spot?
No.
I don't think so, just because I really don't know which one's going to come out on top. Barrios had a better week 1. Craycraft had a better week 2. So it's a little bit.
It could also be neither. It could be more to Tyreek.
Right. That's right. We just see Tyreek getting these Puka Nacua 15 receptions, 20 targets. I mean, it's likely too. I don't know if this Denver defense is going to quite hold up. I do think they have the talent to turn it around, but until we see it, I'm going to be comfortable starting wide receivers against them. Mostert's a little bit more on edge. I would have him more as a flex start than on like a RB2. But if he falls into the end zone, he's probably going to also get about 15 carries, 60 yards or so. So we need that touchdown out of him.
Yeah. More targets for Smythe if he's out.
Yeah, that's true. My opinion, Barris and Craycraft are interesting starts at the flex if you're desperate. If you're looking at a week where you're just wide receivers are screwed with injuries and, it's a waiver pickup, I think it's worth the risk. But, unless you're desperately injured at that situation, I think you kind of
would you rather start him or would you rather start one of them or Jalen Hyatt?
Hyatt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd go Hyatt over them. But
that is my fault. I flipped the weeks that they outperformed each other. Oh no, actually Craycraft outperformed in both.
Yeah.
Just by a smidge in week 2, but he had the touchdown in week 1 that put him over Barrios. Just to correct myself. Don't want to get yelled at in the comments.
Yeah. Hopefully you don't have to correct yourself again.
Yeah. All right. So moving on to our next game, we got the Colts against the Ravens. Ravens are 7.5-point favorites, over under 40.5 or 44.5. We got Anthony Richardson. He's got the concussion. Looks like he'll probably be good to go, but they did say that if he's not, then Minshew is going to get the start. Might see a little bit more increased passing volume if Minshew is the starter. Richardson did look great in week 1, so if he does play, happy to start him. Injury on the Ravens side of the ball. Justice Hill popped up on the injury report. He's got a toe injury. I didn't see him leave the game in week 2, so I was a bit surprised to see this pop up. I will say that either way, I'm not starting Justice Hill. we'll stay on the cold side of the ball. Right now, we got Richardson and Pittman as our starts. Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, all of the tight ends. And I personally have Zach Moss as a sit. I think that he really benefited against a weak Houston Texans run defense. Colts got up early. They were able to just pound the ball on the ground whenever they wanted to. Really ran away with the game. I'm not personally starting Moss against Baltimore. I think the game script is going to be flipped this week in comparison to what they had last week. And I'm not looking to start Zach Moss. But what do you gentlemen think?
For Zach Moss, I mean, I'm not pissed off or anything if I am starting him. I don't think he's going to do what he did last week. I think, like you said, the game script fit him. Texans run defense isn't the best. They're going up against Baltimore. They probably will be down most of the game. And I mean, we still don't even know if Zach Moss really is going to stay as the lead back in that backfield. There's still a lot of questions to be answered in that area. So, I mean, I'm on the fringe with Zach Moss still. Just not pissed if I'm starting him, not insanely happy if I'm starting him.
Yeah, I think I'm comfortable starting him. I'm not too upset about that. I think he may not have a game like he had last week, but I think he'll put up 10 points, a solid 10 points, probably more, and I'm happy with that. But that's if it happens. We'll see. I just don't see them giving the ball to that many other people in the backfield. They're gonna have to run the ball. He's pass catching too, so I think he's gonna get work, and that's points. Should be at least. Baltimore is a tough defense, though. Baltimore is a tough defense. But I do think that we got the two sits down. Can't start really anybody else yet. Josh Downs maybe sneaking up to the sit category later on in the season, though.
Yeah. I do think Josh Downs is looking good as far as like late-ish round rookie wide receivers go. Still, I believe the wide receiver 3 in terms of snap percentage. Pierce is going to have more of those boomer bust games with being the downfield target. But yeah, Zach Moss, I just looked it up, 98% of the snaps. They didn't have anybody else.
Nobody else.
Evan Hall is going to be gone for a while. Deion Jackson was limited to special teams work. So really, it is just Zach Moss. He is going to be a volume play. Like Mason said, maybe if you're desperate, you can start him. But this week, if Anthony Richardson is starting and they're in a negative game script, I don't think Richardson's the guy that checks the ball down. I think he takes off. If Minshew's starting, maybe Moss gets 5-6 targets, a few receptions here or there. But yeah, outside of just being a volume play, I don't think Zach Moss has the talent to really produce in games where they're not playing against the Texans and up big early. All right, on the Baltimore side of the ball, we got Lamar. Our starters are Lamar, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, and Gus Edwards, especially if Justice Hill ends up missing time. Gus Edwards, also one of those guys, just he lacks the ceiling without having the pass catching ability. So just don't expect him to win your week. But I do see him getting probably another touchdown in this game. I think that Baltimore, especially like they got that big spread, I think they do get off to a hot start and end up pounding the ball on the ground. So I think Gus Edwards is going to be good for another 10 to 14 carries, 60 yards or so, and hopefully he falls into the end zone. What do you guys think about Gus Edwards?
Gus Edwards, I do not want to start him in my lineup. I don't.
Yeah.
I just don't want to do it. I do think Justice Hill is. I started Justice Hill. Granted, it was a 16-team dynasty league, but I think I'd be more comfortable starting Justice Hill over Gus Edwards. I really like the pass catching ability, and he doesn't have any. They just won't do it to him. I don't understand, and it's just not enough work for him. I mean, he has eaten off of that, but he's also getting older. Like he's not the Gus Bus is getting a little rusty eventually. What do you think?
For some reason.
Yeah, got to take yourself off of mute, buddy.
I mean, I'm confident starting Gus Edwards. Especially this week, I think Ravens are really going to have a good week. I think if Justice Hill is out, and even if Justice Hill is playing, he could get limited even more. giving Gus Edwards a big workload. And when you got a good game script, or it should be a good game script, I mean, that's what you want for your RBs. And yeah, I mean, if Hill is out, I mean, if Gus Edwards adds in a couple catches, he could have a pretty solid, productive fantasy week. And he's on my for sure starts this week. If unless my team is loaded at the RB position, Gus Edwards is one of my starts.
Yeah, I think that he's going to have the volume in order to get it done. It is going to be strength against strength. Ravens are good at running the ball. So far this season, limited sample size, just the 2 games. But the Colts are number one in terms of yards per attempt that they give up to running backs. They only let up 2.6 yards per carry. That could be skewed by who they've played against so far. Right now their first 2 opponents were Jacksonville and Houston. Pierce looks really inefficient, and Jacksonville in week 1 was just throwing the ball at will, so they didn't need to run the ball. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this game goes. I do think that on the sit side, we got OBJ, Rashad Bateman. I personally have Justice Hill there, especially with the toe injury making him a little bit more questionable. But yeah, outside of that, we didn't touch on one thing real quick. Evan, Zay
Yeah.
Flowers.
Yes, I'm glad I fixed that because I actually had I looked down and I had Zay Jones as my wide receiver start of the week, which he is absolutely not. He's absolutely not my start of the week. It's Zay Flowers.
After a goose, that's pretty tough.
Right. But I'm definitely comfortable starting Flowers. I mean, he's at 13 receptions, 140 yards on the season already. That's just through 2 games as a rookie, so they're going to increase his usage. They should, at least historically speaking, it happens. But there's a little bit of fear of Mark Andrews' show completely taking over. But they're going to have to throw the ball and spread the ball around. OBJ not practicing, not playing. Actually, is he practicing? Is he playing? OBJ?
I haven't seen a ton on his.
Okay, so
I tried to look it up, couldn't find much.
No practice today. Updated as of 8 minutes ago. So
no practice today. Yeah, especially
no practice today for Odell. But yeah, touching on Zay, that deep ball, that was a beautiful catch, man. Pinned it to the helmet a little bit. Yeah, I think Zay's just going to continue to prove himself as the wide receiver 1 in Baltimore. He looks so electric on the field.
Fire him up.
Yeah. Well, Zay Flowers to me is the one rookie wide receiver besides Puka, of course, that I honestly feel confident starting in my lineup so far. Obviously, the others will improve throughout the season. Addison, I would feel confident.
Addison, as well. That's what I was going to say.
But I think he's really established himself as this number 1 receiver for the team. He's beat out Bateman and OBJ, both vets in the league. Zay Flowers, I'm confident. I mean, I think there will be some games where it will be very run-based, and Andrews might be the guy getting targets. But I think Zay Flowers is going to be – he's nearing the point where I'm confident where if I throw him in, I'm expecting at least 10 points from him.
Yeah. In the first 2 weeks, 84% snap share and 77%. Bateman in the first 2 weeks, 39 and 59. And Odell 92, and then dropped down to 52. I do think that's a little bit due to the injury mid-game, but like we were saying, Zay just looks different out there. So love that start of the week there. He will have a tough matchup in the slot. Kenny Moore's decent, their only decent cornerback, but he gave up a decent amount of yards to Tank Dell last week, and Robert Woods mixing into the slot. So I absolutely can see Zay blowing up still. All right, that's the end for that game. We're going to kick it back to Mason.
Actually, before we kick it, I wanted a quick question to you guys.
Oh.
Do you think Bateman is worth a roster spot at all in redraft leagues anymore?
Nope. Cut Bateman.
Yeah. I know there's still some people that are holding on with a little hope, but I mean, if Odell's there, I think that he's going to if Odell's there, Bateman's going to be the wide receiver 3 on that team, really the wide receiver 4, because Andrews as well. And I think Zay Flowers is the only reliable start out of any 3 of those guys, and I think he will be the only one all year. But then switch up to the next game. going to Houston at Jacksonville. Jacksonville is currently favored by 9.5, and the over/under is 43.5 points right now. As far as the injury reports go, we have C.J. Stroud. And he's got a little bit of a shoulder injury, but he's expected to be 100% for Week 3. It's not really an injury I'm worried about. And then Zay Jones picked up a knee injury. He's considered day-to-day, but he had no practice today, which could be a little worrying, especially with Kirk and Ridley. That is a little bit of a crowded wide receiver room. So the injury does not help his case, really. But for our sits of the week, we're going to be starting with Houston. For the start, I'm not 100% sure behind this, but my man Evan over here thinks that Stroud is going to be a great start this week. I want to hear your reasoning behind why you think Stroud this is the week to start him.
Sure. I mean, I did too. I don't know if you caught my waiver wire episode, but yeah, I did talk about CJ Stroud here. I'm going to talk about him again the same way. Did you know? Do you think Herbert and Tua are good quarterbacks?
Yeah.
That he had more completions than both of them? How about Mahomes and Josh Allen? Do you think those guys are good quarterbacks? Did you know he has more passing yards than both of those guys?
Okay, did you know that he was trailing more than the rest of those quarterbacks?
This is a fantasy show. This is not a best football team show. This is not who's going to win the division. This is fantasy football. Who's putting up points? Who's getting the yards?
That's fair. And they're definitely going to be down. If it wasn't so obvious, Etienne would have we decided on the pronunciation of his name? Is he French? Is he not? I don't know. But Travis Etienne, he would have been my start of the week, but it's way too obvious. So start him if you got him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Honestly, though, I don't completely disagree with the Stroud. I think it's a risk play. But yeah, that team is going to be down most of the year. They're going to be passing, and Stroud honestly does not look too bad. Obviously, there's some throws and some plays where it's a little questionable, but I'm liking Stroud, especially in the dynasty standpoint. I mean, I'm liking him more than Bryce Young.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
I was happy to snag him at the 107 in our rookie draft for our dynasty league. That was incredible. We got AR, Stroud, and then JSN at 104. Feeling good about all of those picks right now. JSN's got to work himself into the offense, but that's the long play.
The long play.
Yeah, and then so we're going to switch it up to the Jaguar side of the ball. I mean, Lawrence is a start in my opinion. Ridley is a no-brainer. Etienne, I still say a no-brainer. And then a guy that's a little questionable on the fence that, I'm a little worried about do I start him, do I not, is Christian Kirk. And I want to know your guys' opinion on this.
So right now, if Zay Jones is healthy, and I don't think he's going to miss time, but if he is healthy, Kirk is my sit of the week. I think that Kirk was relied on because they were down so frequently in that game, and they had L'Jarius Sneed on Ridley. Looked like he was pretty locked up. Kirk had 14 targets and 11 receptions for 110 yards. I think this is a trap game. Houston doesn't give up that much passing yards per game. Even in this season, again, limited sample size, only 191 yards per game. I really think they're just going to run the ball down their throat. They're not going to risk it through the air. I think that Christian Kirk can be, again, one of those fringe flex starts, especially if Zay Jones misses. But just in terms of expectation versus what I think will happen this week, I'm making him the sit of the week just so I can adjust people's expectations. Not going to be another 21-point week for Christian Kirk.
I agree. Calvin
What? Me and you agree?
I've never been high on Kirk. You know this.
Madness. That's true.
I think Kirk's an interesting flex start. If you need it, especially if Zay Jones isn't playing, I feel more confident. I think Jaguars are going to be up most of this game, though. They're going to be very run-based, and Ridley's going to, if it is very run-based, Ridley's going to be the only receiver on that team. I mean, even Evan Ingram, tight end. I don't think the passing volume will be there where Kirk is for sure throwing your lineup, but he's intriguing. Just depending on how your team is, but I'd say in most scenarios, no.
Yeah.
And then for the other sits of the week for them, I mean, we got Zay Jones sitting. If we got Christian Kirk, a little more questionable of a start, I think Zay Jones is definitely a sit. And then, I mean, I got Evan Ingram starting, even though I don't think Dan seems to have Ingram being a little questionable.
I threw the question mark on there. Again, tight end position is so weak right now. So, like, I totally get starting him if that's who you have right now, and you're just looking at waiver wire options to replace Ingram. Not going that far, but I didn't draft Ingram in too many leagues. I think that this passing offense has so many options. Really, I have him in the sit category right now, more so again because I think they're going to run away with the game early. They're not going to be passing the ball as frequently as they were against the Chiefs last week. And then who did they play before that in week one? I think it was the Colts. Yeah, it was the
Colts.
Yeah,
Colts. So realistically, I just don't think that Ingram is a guy that you should rely on. However, if you drafted him and don't have any other options, I totally understand. He's probably going to still be a top 12 guy because all you need is like 4 catches for 40 yards to get into the top 12 at tight end.
Yeah, maybe we should just talk only Jacksonville, and then we'll be able to agree on everything. Because I totally agree with you there too.
There we go.
But if only you got the start sit advice last week with Zay Jones, he might have beaten me last week.
Dude, he had the 2 touchdown targets, so close to landing the foot in one of them. If he even had one of those touchdowns or even a couple catches for 30 yards, would have won that game.
You would have this, but instead I do.
Yes, instead you do because of Bryce. Because the Saints decided that they wanted to stop playing defense on that last one. Bryce Young looked terrible all game, and they're like, you know what, Bryce, we're going to give you one. And that one let you beat me.
Did they really give it to Bryce, or were they just giving it to me then at that point? Probably.
Yeah, like, you know what, Evan? You deserve this.
Yeah. There, thank you, guys.
Hey, you didn't mention that other league, though. Your league, that 2 tight end league you like so much.
Yeah, no.
How'd that one go?
Yeah, Troutman. Started
Troutman.
He was a nice donut for me. He was a nice donut. But hey, we're doing me and Dan are in like I think 6 leagues together, and we're doing like a total tally of who's got the most wins against each other when we match up. So gonna be interesting to see how that goes.
Stay tuned and give us some punishments. So
yeah, we need
we got to figure out what we're gonna do.
We need some ideas for that for sure. But oh yeah, what?
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't know you weren't done.
No, you're good. You're good. I was thinking, are we moving on? Or are we going back to Houston?
Yeah, no. For the second week in a row, we skipped Houston. So we got to backtrack a little. We talked about Stroud. I want to make a quick couple points. So Robert Woods is actually my wide receiver starting of the week. The passing volume's been there, and I believe he's got 6 catches through 2 weeks. I think Robert Woods has proved himself he's got a pretty good floor. The passing volume will be there all year, and I think especially in this game, Jags are going to be up. Passing's going to be going crazy. So, I mean, Robert Woods, in my opinion, is the number 1 receiver to be starting on that team right now. But, I mean, you could even
over Nico.
Yeah, Nico's not a bad start either. I think there's a little more shadiness with that, but I don't think Nico's a bad start either. And Damian Pierce, in my opinion, is a sit. The efficiency's not there. The work, I mean, he's obviously the lead back there, but the game plan is never going to really be sitting in his favor. So Damian Pierce is kind of a sit for me. I'm not pissed off if I do start him, though. But my sit of the week for tight end position is Dalton Schultz. The week 1, he ran an insane amount of routes, didn't get a catch. I don't even know if we got a target. Schultz had a decent week 2, but I think that will kind of also fall off more as Tank Dell begins to really build out more of a role into this offense. And I think he showed a little more promise, and I think that's definitely going to take away from Schultz more than it is the other receivers.
Yeah, Schultz did catch 2 balls in week 1, but it was for 4 yards. So basically did nothing for you. And like you said, he ran the most routes in week 1, and that was what he put up. So completely agree with you there. Definitely sitting Schultz. I would not start Woods over Nico Collins.
Or Tank.
Right now, Nico's looking great. He's that downfield threat. I do think that Woods and Tank start to eat into each other's production a little bit more than Tank or Robert Woods start to eat into Collins. But I agree that Woods is a great start this week. Like you touched on, 19 targets in 2 weeks, 12 catches, about 131 yards. So I do think that he's going to be a reliable pass catcher for Stroud. And like Evan touched on, they're going to be passing the ball a ton. So I like that. I like that at the start of the week.
I don't like it. I think that those numbers that he's hit the early, like the first 2 weeks, are more like his ceiling numbers, not his floor. I think Tank Dell is the second one, the top. Nico, Tank Dell, those are the guys to start.
Interesting enough, both receivers out snapped Nico Collins. Nico has been sitting around 70% of snaps in week 1, 62 in week 2. But when he's on the field, he's getting targeted. So I do think that he's still the wide receiver to roster there. I would still go Robert Woods for this week. I do think Tank Dell has more value for the rest of the season. But this week I like him as a start.
No, I agree. Woods' situation is something to watch as the season goes on. I mean, he might be on my hardcore sit list in 2 weeks, you know?
Right.
And that's right for the Jags game.
All right. Off to New England and Jets, right? Unless we got anything else to go. Houston, Jets,
nope.
Good? All right.
Good to go.
New England and Jets. The Jets are favored, actually, by 2.4 points. The over-under is 36.
They're not.
Oh,
it's New England by 2.5.
I was gonna say, I was like, yep, all right. That's why I was kind of surprised by the way it said. All right,
Yeah.
New England is favored by 2.5, and then we have the over/under set at 36.5. Now let's dive into the injuries here. We got Devontae Parker, knee. Breece Hall, knee. He's likely to play though. Both of those guys, I'm not expecting to put in my lineups right now, so not nothing too crazy there. New England start sits. Let's go dive into the fantasy aspects. Starting, you got to be starting Ramondre Stevenson. Starter Hunter Henry. Oof, I feel like he's one of those guys that's been on your bench, and the second you put him in your lineup, he's going to have a bad week. But you know what? With what he's doing, you kind of have to start him at this point. Sit Mac Jones, Kendrick Bourne, Zeke. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Hunter Henry he's the only reliable target on that team. Kendrick Bourne was leading in snaps. Juju's not playing as much as I think some people thought. And then outside of that, you got Demario Douglas and Tayshaun Boutte. Like it's just not. Oh, and Devontae Parker. It's just not reliable outside of Hunter Henry. I am comfortable starting him. He's been reliable so far. He has gotten into the end zone both weeks, so that has a big part to do with it. But like we've been saying, you don't need much to finish as a tight end one. And I do think consistently he'll get about 5 catches, 50 yards. So it's all we're looking for to start a tight end in the back end here. But yeah, outside of that, I'm not starting anybody other than Ramondre Stevenson.
Yeah. I'm still not starting Henry. I mean, Gesicki even got 5 catches this last week. I mean, it's a really risky start going Hunter Henry. He has looked great throughout the first 2 weeks. Looks like the number one target there. But I don't know. I mean, I think Gesicki could some weeks really hurt Henry. So it's all tight end starts are a risk, but I think Henry is a very big risky play, especially, Bill Belichick's offense. You never know what the hell is going to go on there.
True. Yeah, no, I've always hated Belichick offense, especially with the running backs too. But Stevenson's pretty safe.
Yeah, no, Stevenson is my only lock, and that I say you got to start on the Patriots offense.
I agree.
It's just he gets the receiving work, and Zeke's not been too involved. So, Stevenson will at least finish as a top 24 RB. Jets defense is tough, but still got to start him if you drafted him with one of those first top three round picks.
Yeah, for sure. Moving on to the Jets start sits, we got Garrett Wilson, ding ding ding, as our start. But I think one of the three of us has something else to say about that. Mason, what do you got to say about it?
I'm sitting Garrett Wilson. It really sucks to say where you were drafting him. I mean, we talked about this last episode. Zach Wilson, when he was there, when he was the starting QB for that team last year, Wilson, I believe, Garrett Wilson was ranked around wide receiver 50. Garrett Wilson had a good week this week, but it really came off of that like 70-yard touchdown that he got. Without that, Garrett Wilson's week was not anything worth starting. And I mean, he's not going to be having those big plays every single game. And I think really starting him, I mean, he could be a flex start, but I'm staying away from anybody on the Jets roster right now. I think it's a complete risk play where you have no idea, what's going to really happen there.
Yeah.
And
He
Zach
like
Wilson,
you said, other than the one bomb that he really did all the work on, he just got a slant and did the rest himself. It's hard to sit Wilson. I sat him last week personally because I didn't trust it. Also think that Bill Belichick does a great job of taking away your one. So when you have Zach Wilson throwing the ball and only one wide receiver that's threatening at all, I do think it's really nerve-wracking to start Wilson. That being said, most players or most rosters probably don't have four wide receivers that they're starting over him. So probably a guy you can throw into the back, expect to be boom or bust. But I am comfortable sitting Wilson if you have better options.
Oh, I just would not be comfortable doing that. Not yet, at least. I mean,
Not comfortable sitting or starting?
sitting. I'm not comfortable sitting Garrett Wilson yet. I am comfortable starting him.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that still. I want to see a
Talent's
little.
there. It's just so frustrating now that Rodgers is gone. It's yeah, it definitely took him in a couple leagues, hoping that he's going to have that true breakout. I had him over guys like Olave, over Ridley, over Keenan Allen, and immediately looks like it's not going to work out that way with Rodgers gone.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Wilson, if Zach Wilson's the quarterback there all year, I think Garrett Wilson's real potential is finishing as wide receiver 3 area. I don't think he has any more really potential than that. I mean, he's going to have some boom weeks, but Zach Wilson sucks. That's just plain
Zach
and simple.
Wilson. Oh,
He does suck.
yeah. Really hoping they bring in a vet.
Well,
Zach Wilson is the one QB that I will confidently say in the NFL he sucks. Like this.
Yeah.
And find me someone who will argue against me with that. I dare you.
Yes.
and that's why he's in our sit section of the part here. But actually, somebody else that we didn't get to on our starts, Dalvin Cook. You starting Dalvin Cook?
No, I'm not starting Dalvin Cook personally. It didn't look great last week. I think he had negative points, if I'm not mistaken. I think he had a fumble somewhere along the line. I'll fact check that. But yeah, Dalvin Cook does not look good with the Zach Wilson-led offense. I'm not expecting them to put up points. And really, I think Dalvin Cook was just looking at splitting the snaps, maybe getting some upside through a couple of catches, maybe falling into the end zone. Not looking like that's a strong possibility at this point.
No. Yeah, I'm going to put him in the sit section as well. What do you think, Mason?
There is one league I'm starting Dalvin Cook in. It's because my running backs are horrendous. My dynasty league, it's a dynasty league, and going into the season, last season, my main 3 backs were, it was Dalvin Cook, Kamara, and Ezekiel Elliott. So in that league, yes, I'm starting Dalvin Cook. But in your most leagues, no, not really. I mean, the running back usage is a little unknown right now. They're going to be down most of the game, which, if Zach Wilson is really that bad, they might still be running the ball a decent amount. But I don't know. It's a little shaky with what's going on with Breece Hall as well. When is he gonna be 100%? Obviously, he's not going to be 100% this week, but there is going to be some point where Breece Hall is going to really take away, almost all the snaps from Dalvin Cook, and that just makes it starting Dalvin even this week a little bit of a risk because Breece Hall could still be
even last week, 36% of the snaps on the season, he has 17 attempts for 40 yards. He is averaging under 2.5 yards per carry on the season. It is ugly. I'm not starting him. No shot.
So yeah, Mason's not starting a single jet.
Well, I am in that one league because
Well, yeah, but
Yeah.
because, of course, but like if you had the
You're
choice, you wouldn't
screwed,
start.
and you got old men at your running back position.
yeah, no, that team was really good 2 years ago, and now it's kind of just in the, and
You
it's
held that bag on
Yeah.
all three.
got my bag, and now I'm suffering from.
Now you're fucked.
Yeah.
So joining Cook and Wilson, we got Hall, Lazard, Conklin. The lonely bunch. It's a lonely bunch down there.
Hall's the only one that's even like, Hall and Garrett Wilson. They're the only two that like are even questionably worth starting. And Hall just because he can break off a big run. But again, Bill Belichick does a pretty good job of taking away your top options. I think you know who I'm starting in this game? Matthew Judon in IDP leagues. Who's going to have like 4 sacks.
Probably.
Anybody else got anything on that game?
Nope.
All right, let's move on to the Falcons against the Lions. We got the Lions favored by 3 points. It's going to be a 46.5 point over under. I do like this game. I think there's going to be a ton of startable options. We got Montgomery. Right now, he's listed as questionable. I hate it when coaches do this. When the player came out after the game, he said, "I'm going to be out at least a couple of weeks while I heal." And Dan Campbell's like, "No, you're questionable. We
Don't say
need."
that. You don't say that.
We are going to get such an advantage of teams thinking maybe Montgomery will be out there. He's not going to be out there. Fire up Jahmyr Gibbs. Start him in all of your leagues. He's going to be a beast against this team right now, especially with Amon-Ra also day-to-day with a toe injury. Josh Reynolds got a groin injury. I do think both of those wide receivers end up on the field, but if they're not playing at 100%, we got Jahmyr Gibbs. I think he's going to easily get 5 receptions in this game. I think he's going to get like 70% of the snaps. I know they moved Bam Knight up into their active roster. They had Craig Reynolds kind of replacing David Montgomery. I'm not worried about either of those two guys. The most that they'll do is fall into the end zone. But other than that, I think it's going to be Jahmyr Gibbs' season. Definitely firing him up. I'm starting Amon-Ra if he plays. I'm starting Josh Reynolds if he plays. He's looking like their solidified wide receiver 2 at this point. Marvin Jones is just a shadow of himself. So I'm firing him up. I think the big question on the Detroit side of the ball is Sam Laporta. He's been looking good through the first 2 weeks. I know one of us has a pretty strong take on Laporta this week. Evan, what do you think?
I love me some Sam Laporta, especially if Amon-Ra and Josh Reynolds are all banged up, and he's just proven to be consistent, reliable target, and Goff is looking for those types of targets, and especially if Amon-Ra's not going to be able to get the separation because he doesn't have the burst from his toe. It's going to be tough, and he's really performing well, exceptionally well. He looks great. He's defenders are struggling to get him down. He's getting open in space. I'm really happy with what I've seen from him so far. The only thing that would make me happier is some tutties.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
I mean, the Amon-Ra injury, I'm not worried about it really much. It's something obviously to watch, but I think he's still going to be playing. It could drop the production a little bit, but still throw him in your lineup no matter what. If he is,
of course. Yeah, if he's healthy, he's an auto lock.
I think there was a time last year where he was banged up, and I actually didn't start him, and I regretted it. Like, he went off, I'm pretty sure too. So if he's playing, I have to start him. I learned my lesson the hard way.
Yeah. Gibbs.
How about Josh Reynolds? If Josh Reynolds
if
he's active, are you starting him?
He wouldn't. No.
I'm a little on the fence because it's a groin injury. That is a tough one to come back from. It is more effective than a toe, in my opinion. But I'm not sure.
I wasn't even interested in a waiver for Reynolds.
I can't believe that. Spoiler alert, that was one of my waiver wires from last week. And what did he do last week? Let's take a look. We got Josh Reynolds as wide receiver 9 in PPR. I'm sorry, wide receiver 12, but put up 7. Oh, shit, I'm all fucked up. All right, just week 2. That was over the first 2 weeks. Wide receiver 9, 23.6 points in PPR. Dude put up numbers. He's playing at a high snap percentage, 80% in week 2, 70 in week 1. I think that they're going to pass the ball all over this defense, especially with Montgomery being out, I think they lean a little bit more Pat Savage.
I don't know. I mean, my more wide receiver thing.
I smell a bet, Evan. I smell a bet.
Oh, I do think we can get one going here.
I think we need to find another player and go 1v1 on a player throughout this pod.
Yes,
We'll find it throughout it. See if who you want. It could be another game that we did or that we already done, but pick your player. Obviously, someone reasonable, and then we'll see what we got at the end.
I honestly do think in that whole wide receiver situation, if Amon, he should be playing, but if he is out and Josh Reynolds is out, Marvin Jones could be an interesting waiver wire pickup just for the week. I mean, you'd be dropping him after the week, but if Amon and Reynolds are out, he should be their wide receiver one. So,
yeah,
I mean, could be a decent risk.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think that Marvin Jones, like you said, only if both are out, then I would start him. And definitely an interesting DFS play. Probably won't cost you anything. But that's if both players miss. On the Atlanta side of the ball, it's obvious. Bijan starting. Less obvious, I'm starting Algier as well. I do think that this is going to be one of the games where he falls into the end zone. We got Drake London. He is more worrisome start, but I'm starting him. They oiled the squeaky wheel. You know, he got a good game out of it last week. And then my tight end start of the week, again, it is risky business out here. But we're not trying to give you very obvious starts. I know a lot of people are worried about Kyle Pitts. I think that he could be the squeaky wheel this week. The Lions don't have a great defense. I do think that Pitts, he's not going to be the guy that gets you 6-7 receptions, but he might take one of the receptions he gets for a big gain, hopefully falls into the end zone, not relying on that touchdown. But if you're worried about Pitts this week, I wouldn't be. I do think that the Lions are good enough to hold a solid lead over the Falcons for most of the game. Falcons have been playing a little bit above expectation. Took a game home last week, won by 1 point. That was a fun game to watch. But yeah, I do think that Pitts is going to be worth starting. Again, just because he's my start of the week doesn't mean I think he's going to be tight end one. But I think that he's going to get enough work downfield and be efficient enough with the few targets he gets in order to put him in your lineup. What do you guys think about Kyle Pitts?
I mean, I don't think he's a bad start just because I think they're going to be passing a lot this game. Detroit, I think, is going to come out firing because, rough way to lose. The pick six pretty much cost them that game last week in Detroit. I think they're really going to come out firing with more of a purpose, and they're going to be up a lot of the games. So the passing volume, I think, will be there. I mean, it already was there last week, though. That's what I'm more worried about. They threw the ball, I think, 47 times or something crazy like that. Might be wrong about that number, but it was a good amount of times they threw the ball. Pitts still didn't put up the biggest numbers. And I just think the way Ritter is and the way that offense is you're going to have some weeks where London's going to be the guy. You're going to have some weeks where Pitts is going to be the guy. I don't think it's a bad start. I do like it more this week than normal just because the game script of how I think it's going to be going.
Right. It's tough finding these tight end starts of the week. I'm not going to give you a guy inside of the top 6 guys drafted. We all know that we're starting them. So trying to give a little confidence to those Pitts owners out there. But again, not looking for him to be a top 3 tight end even on the week.
False hope. You're giving him false hope. Jonnu Smith had 4 catches and 47 yards.
Are you starting Jonnu Smith, Evan?
No, but I'm definitely not starting the guy who got less targets than him.
Did he get less targets?
Yes,
I'm pretty sure he got 5 targets on the week.
I know. Jonnu got 6.
Oh, shit. You're right. He had 4 catches. Okay. I stand corrected.
And how many yards? 15 out of the 2 receptions? Oh, that's lovely.
No, for sure. But let's go back a week from there. He had 2 catches for 44 yards. Let's say Ritter gets him another couple targets, catches 4 balls. If he keeps up that yards per target, he'll be fine. It's not going to be great, but I'll start him over your tight end start of the week.
Laporta? Well, let's get bet on that.
All right, we got 2 bets.
Dude,
we got to decide on Reynolds.
I would start Laporta over Pitts.
I think he's safer for sure, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
I like it. Live bets. All right.
All right. That pretty much caps it. I think everyone knows that to start Mac or to sit Mac Collins. I think maybe some people might be tempted into Ritter after seeing the rushing touchdown. Don't start him, especially if you're in a one QB league. There's no need for that. I think most people know this sits for this week. Algier is really the only questionable one that I didn't ask you guys about. Are you guys starting Algier as a flex play?
No, I'll start him as an
Hmm,
RB in a dire situation, but that's it.
I don't know about flex, but yeah, like you said, dire situation. I think he's gonna have weeks where he goes off and weeks where he's gonna be doing low. That's just the way the Atlanta offense is gonna be this year. It's gonna really depend on the game plan.
All right. Moving on to the next game. Mason, you got this one.
Right. So for the next game, we got Tennessee at Cleveland. Cleveland is currently favored by 3, with the over under being 39.5. Over under being pretty low. I do think it's going to be a low scoring game. Both
Super low scoring game.
two lackluster offenses so far, especially with Chubb going out. But as far as injury report,
Guys,
I mean, we know
don't talk
Chubb's
about
out
it, please.
this season, but Amari Cooper's the injury we're watching this week. He's got a groin and a shoulder injury. He was not practicing today. I'm not hearing a ton about it. I think he will play, but it is still something to watch. And so we're going to keep it on the Cleveland side of the ball. Well, they obviously signed Kareem Hunt. Saw that. He's supposed to be the replacement for Chubb going down. It'll be interesting to kind of see what they say on his play time this week because he obviously is familiar with that offense a little bit.
Right.
Him having his tenure in Cleveland, I'm still not starting him though. But on the start side of the ball, we got Cooper, Elijah Moore, a little more questionable in Njoku. I think with Chubb being out, the passing volume will be there a little more, so they might have
Agreed.
some better picks.
Especially against this defense. Tennessee's really good against the run. So I do think Njoku's worth the start. And then, like you said, Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore definitely going to be guys that are going to get increased passing volume, the pass funnel defense. So I am looking for them to have big weeks.
Then Deshaun Watson, I'm honestly sitting him this week. He lost me a fantasy matchup against Dan this week because of his.
Let's go, baby.
So I'm sitting him. Like I got Love as my backup. I'm honestly more confident starting Love than I am Watson this week. I'm losing my faith in Watson. I was already a little iffy coming into the season. He does not look very good. I mean, you're starting him off of the rushing upside, which that's pretty much what you're hoping for. And if he doesn't get that rushing upside, Watson's not worth the start. And then Njoku, I like Njoku a lot this. I think he's going to be a top 12 tight end pretty consistently. But you see Evan shaking his head over there. I know he's got something to say on Njoku.
Yeah, I think Njoku. I mean, he's a great tight end. I really did think he was going to have a good season, but he's just doesn't like. I don't know what it is with Watson. Watson's just not targeting the tight end or not. He's just favoring the wide receivers. And I'm just kind of seeing Njoku slowly get phased out. He's only got 6 receptions on the year, and I just like he's not a terrible tight end. This is a guy who's a good tight end, decent to have, but I just think that we kind of got to lower our expectations on what to get for him on a weekly basis.
I would agree if Chubb didn't just go down. Like, there's no way that they're going to be running the ball nearly as much as they were. Obviously, Deshaun does not look good. Completely agreed with that. The most frustrating thing about Deshaun right now is as soon as he starts to feel pressure, he's going to tuck the ball and he doesn't pick his head back up. There's almost no point unless he's absolutely screwed and rolled out that he picks his head back up and targets downfield. And even when he does that, usually an off-target bomb somewhere. Even at the ending of the game last week, you saw him take a shot downfield on the sidelines. It was Marquise Goodwin on the target, and the ball was probably a good 10 yards out of bounds. It gives this guy no shot at all. So that's the frustrating part. I think if it specifically in this game, though, that the passing targets are going to get a lot more volume between Nick Chubb going down and the Titans having a very strong run defense. I believe they're number one against running backs in terms of fantasy points given up so far.
Yeah. And, that's going to lead us into our set of, our sits for the Browns. We got Kareem Hunt and Jerome Ford. We'll hear from the Browns fan why we should be sitting Jerome Ford.
Yeah, it's rough for the week one start. It's the matchup against the Titans. I do think that Jerome Ford is going to be a worthy start moving forward. I do think that he still gets the bulk of the touches in this backfield. The Browns bring in Kareem Hunt. We could kind of see it in that last game. Even they got to the goal line on one of these. They didn't have the best blocking, but they brought in Pierre Strong and he ran into a wall. These guys, Jerome Ford and Pierre Strong, they are not built like Nick Chubb. They're not running through guys. Kareem Hunt, he lacks the speed that he once had, but he still runs like he's mad at the ground. So I think he's going to be our goal line back. I think he's going to be in on short yardage situations. And then if Jerome Ford can't prove that he's decent in pass block situations, I do think that Kareem Hunt could get some passing work. He has decent hands, but again, after he gets into open field, he doesn't have that breakaway speed like we saw from Ford in week one with that giant run. So I think they're going to still be looking for the guy that can have some burst through the holes, still have a great offensive line. I'm still happy if I was able to pick up Ford for a reasonable price. I saw Jerome Ford in one of my leagues. He went for 125 out of $200 of fab, 5/8 of your fab right there. And then another league, he went for $93 of $100 of fab. Ridiculous amounts of fab dropped on Ford this week. But if you were able to pick him up for a reasonable amount, I do think he was still a great pickup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm not starting him in really any leagues.
I want to start him. Like if I had him, I'd start him. I don't have him anywhere, but I think I'd start him. I don't know. It's a tough
I'm starting him in one league, and I've talked about this. I had going into the dynasty season in this league, Nick Chubb, J.K. Dobbins, David Montgomery, and David Montgomery. Who'd I miss? Did I say four already?
You said
Cam Akers. Thank you. So
Okay.
felt good about that. We'll touch on Cam Akers real soon here. Very interesting move today. But yeah, looking rough. So I am starting Jerome Ford and Gus Edwards in those leagues. But if you can look elsewhere, I would start somebody else over Jerome Ford.
Yeah.
But to switch it up to the other side of the ball, it's going to be Tennessee. You're obviously starting Henry. He is that team's offense entirely. You guys got him down as D-Hop as a start. I'm honestly sitting him. Passing is just, it's awful. I'm not trusting D-Hop anymore. He hasn't shown me anything. Traylon is even looking like I'd be rather starting him than D-Hop at this point.
Interesting. I definitely would not start Burks over Hopkins.
No.
That's just a volume play. Huh?
I'm not starting either of them, but
understandable. Yeah, if you can avoid it, I also would. I think Hopkins is still going to be a volume, the volume king on that team. Other than Henry, you don't have anybody else to rely on that in that offense. So I do think that Hopkins is going to be a flex play. I'm not looking forward to starting him, but again, I think it's a guy that you're probably not going to have 4 wide receivers better than him on your team.
Yeah, no, I'm very comfortable starting him. I mean, even we've just seen him in 2 games. This is the first time first 2 times playing on this team. So there's going to be some growing pains, I guess you could say. And I mean, it's DeAndre Hopkins. There's not many people in the league that are more talented than him. So I think you have to start him.
I don't know. I mean, the talent's definitely there for the player. It just that pass. I mean, Tannehill was very efficient this last week, but that's because he went up against the Chargers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the Browns have a really good pass defense right now. So far, again, we're going to say it frequently at the beginning of the season, limited sample size. But Cleveland right now is only allowing 4.3 yards per pass attempt. That is 3rd best in the league. only behind Atlanta and Dallas. And then they only allow, they are tied for second in terms of yards per game, 133 and a half yards per game. Again, tied for second. So benching D Hop, he still has not showed 10 plus in either games. He will show out soon, but he's not helping me win yet. Definitely not helping you win quite yet. In PPR, he's got 13 and a half points in week one.
Yeah.
But in a half point per reception, I think he was just perfectly at 10 points in week one. So, you know, I get it. I'm not arguing against anybody if they're saying they're going to sit Hopkins because they have better options, but I just don't think most teams have better options at that second flex spot.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's. I mean, and then obviously touch on it real quick. Tannehill's obviously a sit. You know, the only time you're starting Tannehill at all this year is if you're in a 2 QB league and one of your quarterbacks is on bye, and that is the only reason you should ever be starting Tannehill.
And I talked a lot about it, so I won't go on anymore. But Jerome Ford is my sit of the week this week. Just a tough matchup.
Yeah.
That's going to wrap it up for that game, unless you guys got anything else to touch on.
No.
Let's get into this news.
No. We got the news. We got news.
Cam Akers, baby, traded to the Vikings. Love seeing that for his dynasty value against totally selfishly. Really quick, just to start off hot. Rest of the season, let's take out week 3. Let's say from week 4 on, so Akers has a chance to learn the playbook. Who do you think is going to be the running back to start? Who do you think will have a better, we'll say half point per reception finish, Madison or Akers?
Madison.
I'm going Madison 2 season long.
I'm still going Madison as well. It sucks. I was trying to build up a little bit of suspense there, but yeah.
You learned your Cam Akers lesson enough times.
Yeah. I mean, I do like the move. I think this is, even if Cam Akers was splitting with Kyron Williams, I think this is a positive move. I think the Vikings are a more reliable offense. However, the Vikings have thrown the ball the most in the league. Through 2 games, they have nearly 78% of their plays are passing plays. That is insane. Obviously, it's not gonna keep up quite to that degree. But we know Cam Akers does not have the pass catching pedigree. Alexander Madison isn't necessarily the best pass catcher out there either, but he's definitely better than Cam Akers and should hold on to the pass catching role. So that's why I'm taking Madison still. Unfortunately, I would love to see Cam Akers come in and dominate. That dynasty team really needs it, but again, I would definitely go Madison over Akers. Hopefully, it's close. We'll see.
Hopefully, it's close. But for sticking with Minnesota, we got Cousins. We're starting him. This is actually somebody that Mason wanted to talk about here, so I'll let him have the mic for a second.
Yeah, no, Cousins, I think, is the start. Like you said, they've been throwing the ball 78% of the time. That team is built around throwing the ball. They're 0-2. I think they're going to come in. They really want to, try to get ahead early this game. I think the passing's going to be there. Chargers passing defense has not been that good. Tannehill went 20 for 24, and Tannehill really is not that good of a quarterback. Chargers just are letting other quarterbacks, get off good passes. And I think, Tannehill did, not very well fantasy-wise, did good efficiency-wise, but when you actually got a guy who is built in a passing offense, I think he's going to feed off that. We saw what Tua did. Obviously, it's different. He's got Tyreek. But Kirk Cousins, he's got Justin Jefferson. Addison's really starting to step up his role, and even KJ Osborne's doing, a pretty good job. If they just limit the turnovers, I think Cousins is going to be – I think this week he's got top 5 potential.
Yeah, you forgot about one of his favorite targets, TJ Hawkinson.
Oh, my boy TJ.
Yeah, you can't imagine why you left him out of that.
Well, he's been doing so good that I don't even got to mention him.
Don't even got to talk about him. Yeah, just touching on your point really quick too. Chargers, most passing yards per game in the first 2, 333 passing yards per game. Against the team that likes to throw the ball the most. This is a great recipe. I'm loving all of the starts. KJ Osborne shouldn't be started, but outside of that, JJ, Addison, Hawkinson, fire him up.
Yeah, we didn't get into the line here. I think it's Chargers, Minnesota -1. The over under. I think this the highest over under of the games. If I'm not mistaken.
You know what?
I
There's
think
one.
it is.
There might be one. No, I think it's the highest over under. I think
I
the
think
Chiefs
we'll
might be
get to
close.
it if we have to correct it. We'll correct it later on. But I think it's the highest. It is the highest over
It is the
under.
highest. I just checked it. It's the highest.
Yeah.
54.5 is crazy. Battle of the teams who like to blow it late. We'll see who. I think it's going to be a fun game. Somebody should screw up late, and whoever's fan base is going to be mad.
But we already kind of talked about them. Cam Akers sit, KJ Osborne sitting. So moving on to the Chargers, we are starting Herbert, Keenan, Mike Williams, and Dan's RB start of the week, who a lot of people very upset with. Explain why they should not be so upset.
Yeah, Josh Kelly, he went up against the Titans last week, right? You guys played the Titans, I'm pretty sure, week 2.
Yep.
Tough run defense. We talked about it already. Really tough run defense. Joshua Kelly's not the pass catcher that Austin Eckler is, but the Minnesota Vikings are not the run defense that the Titans are. So I could absolutely see Kelly falling into the end zone. In week 1, he had 16 touches for 90-plus yards and a touchdown. Eckler started off this week on Wednesday. He is not practicing. If he misses the game, definitely looking for Kelly to have explosive numbers. But even if Eckler somehow gets back onto the field, I have a hard time seeing him be on 100%, especially with an ankle injury. Really hard to be as that explosive back that Eckler is when you can't explode off of your ankle. So I do think that Kelly would get the bulk of the work, even if Eckler is healthy. I think Eckler might just get the passing down work if he does start. But I think that Kelly is going to be a good week, and it's going to get people back on his side. Let people know that he was worth your waiver wire ad.
All right. And then we got Eckler, Gerald Everett after that as well. So I don't know. Those guys are kind of fringe start sit guys. Honestly, I would probably consider Everett in the sit category, just because Josh. I mean, there's just too many targets. They got Josh Palmer, Quentin Johnson, Mike Williams, Keenan, and they have I can't have it. Donald Parent too. So it's just there's too many mouths to feed. I think it's just no. I wouldn't start him. I mean, I'd spot start him. I wouldn't intentionally put him in my lineup like that.
Just accidentally throw him in your lineup. Yeah, I think it's just going to be a shootout. I think there's going to be a ton of passing in this. I do think that Everett is going to be such a risky start. Did you see that one run that he had, though? That he blocked like 2-3 dudes and then carried another 4 downfield. I don't start him off of one play, but like it does look promising from a coach's eyes when you see a guy competing that hard. I would love to see Everett get a little bit more snaps. Right now, last week, he was down to 41% of the snaps. That's worrisome. But if he ends up with even 50% of the snaps, I could see him breaking off a big play. So, again, fringe start, but I think he could be started.
Great. And then we're sitting Quentin Johnson and Josh Palmer, too. Mason, you got something to say about him?
Oh, yeah. No, Everett, I mean, it just depends. If you don't got a better option, he's not a bad start. But
right.
I would say someone, Quentin Johnson, I'm not starting him, honestly, probably till like week 8 or 9 when, he really
15% of the snaps last week.
Yeah, gross.
Yeah, he's fantasy irrelevant right now in redraft.
An injury.
I mean, it's just, barring an injury, Quentin, I don't think is going to be relevant until week 8 to 10, something like that, when he gets more familiar with, how the NFL works.
Yeah. Right now, Palmer's averaging 59% of the snaps. Still not getting any fantasy production out of that, but he's keeping Quentin Johnson off the field. So both of them are sits.
Agreed. And we already talked about Minnesota, so we are off to you, Dan.
All right, we got the Saints against the Packers. Packers are favored by 2. The over/under is 43 points. Got quite a few injuries on the Saints, or on both sides of the ball, really. We got Jamal Williams, doubtful with a hamstring injury, very unlikely to play. Foster Moreau's nursing an ankle injury. He was not practicing on Wednesday. Taysom Hill also not practicing on Wednesday. I think that one's more so a Veterans Day off, especially with them. It looks like it's going to be Taysom Hill as their makeshift running back and Tony Jones Jr. That's about it, though. On the Packers side of the ball, we got Aaron Jones still not practicing on Wednesday with that hamstring injury. Christian Watson, however, did practice on Wednesday. He is looking more likely to start week 3. I do think that could play in favor for Jordan Love having his most explosive weapon back. He's had a couple of injuries in that wide receiver core. Romeo Dobbs has been good enough to get out there, but he is also playing on limited snaps because of his own hamstring injury. We saw Jaden Reed make the most out of a few targets, catching a couple touchdowns. Jaden Reed does look good when he gets his opportunity, but again, I don't think that he's going to be startable, especially if Watson is back and looking like he is. So right now on the Packers side of the ball, if Christian Watson is healthy, I'm firing him up even against a tough Saints defense. Aaron Jones, if he's healthy, I would fire him up. I don't think he's going to play though. I would, if I was the Packers, I would definitely. Hamstrings are nagging injuries. We want to make sure he gets back to 100%. So I don't think he'll be starting. So even if Aaron Jones doesn't start, not starting AJ Dillon. Tough Saints defense. AJ Dillon looks very inefficient, doesn't offer the pass catching role that Aaron Jones has. So I think if Aaron Jones is out, Jordan Love will have a higher passing volume. He is interesting. I don't think I'd be comfortable enough to start him if I have better options available. Uh, However, I think that he's going to be streamed in a decent amount of leagues. I think that it will be I think he'll be fine. Even with his first few games having was it 3 touchdowns in both?
Yep.
Yep.
3 touchdowns
Yeah, he
in
only had
both.
150
So
yards last week, but he threw up like 3 touchdowns. So
right. So that's a little bit skewed. I looked them up in my 6 point per passing touchdown league. Give me 1 second really quick. So even with the 3 touchdowns in each game. He had 22 points in week 1 and 20.34 points in week 2. He's not getting the yardage. He he's picked up about an average of 17 yards on the ground in each game. So not a ton of rushing upside. Personally, I think this is going to be the toughest defense he's gone up against so far. So I'm trying to sit Jordan Love, but I think he's right on that fringe as well. Probably quarterback 12 to 15 range. He'll get you by if you need him. Evan, what do you think about Jordan Love in week 3?
I'm happy with Jordan Love, especially if Christian Watson comes back. You know what I mean? Like we've been seeing what he does without his number one wide receiver, and it's been great. You know, I think he's top 5 QB on the year, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong there, but yeah, I'm really happy with how he's performing so far, and I'm definitely starting him. I'd probably even if I'm starting one of Romeo Dobbs or Jaden Reed too. If we once we do figure out who is the wide receiver 2 in that.
Yeah, Jordan Love is quarterback 2 on the year, and he's not too far behind number 1, Kirk Cousins. So it'll be interesting. I think this is by far the best matchup best defense he's gone up
Limited
against.
sample size too. So yeah, you're right.
What'd you say?
Limited sample size. You got to take that into consideration.
Right. Limited sample size. He's played against the Bears and the Falcons. So this will be his test. If he shows up against a good Saints defense, after that he plays against Detroit, Las Vegas, and then he has his bye. So if he shows up against the Saints, he's going to end up being the number 1 quarterback out of the week. Right now, the league I'm looking at him in Sleeper has him at 66% rostered. Probably not available in most leagues, but still going to be worth a look. If you guys out there, if you guys are faithful in what Jordan Love is already, I would hold him for the next 2 weeks, but I personally wouldn't be starting him in week 3.
Well, I just gotta say this: Love is gonna have a week because a little unknown thing from my hometown. Actually, Derek Carr and Jordan Love are both from the same town. I think there's going to be a little bit of pride to themselves, so they got to represent the hometown. So I think they're both going to be balling out this week. Love's already been doing good. They seem to be throwing the ball a lot in the red zone, which is a great sign. I mean, the lack of passing yards last week, but the 3 touchdowns made up for it, and they did that week 1 too. But I think all of his touchdowns came from the red zone. I think that's just an amazing sign that you want to see in fantasy, where if you are worried about the yardage, that if he gets 2 touchdowns a game, it's going to make up for that. And I'm starting Love. I've been a huge believer in him. Could just be hometown bias, but fire up Jordan Love, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Fire him up.
I like it.
All right, and then really quick going through the sits. Again, I think most of these are pretty obvious on the Packers side of the ball, but we got Dobbs, Jaden Reed, AJ Dillon, Luke Musgrave, and that's it actually. So Musgrave has been looking good, I think, with the limited opportunities that he gets, making the most out of the targets. I'm not willing to start him until he shows more consistency in this offense. And then Jaden Reed just really had the blow up game because of the couple touchdowns. Not looking to start him in any redraft leagues. But outside of that, what do you guys think about any of these guys mentioned so far? Dobbs, Reed, Musgrave, starting any of them?
I think Dobbs is a start.
Interesting.
Flex start. Especially
Right.
if Watson's out, for sure you're starting Dobbs in the lineup. I think that's something that is my opinion. If Watson is out, still fire up Dobbs. Dobbs still is coming off that injury a little bit. He should be getting really near 100% now. I really like Dobbs. I think he's.
You want to get in on this Josh Reynolds action? Reynolds versus Dobbs?
Sure, let's do it.
Oh,
Evan, where you sit on it?
I don't know.
You want in?
As we passed over Burks, I was actually thinking about Burks too, but
let's do Burks and Reynolds for you, and then I'll do Reynolds and Dobbs for Mason.
All right, fair.
I like it.
Both
got
two
3 bets
all
on the
3,
week.
Yeah.
We'll update you guys next episode.
But
hopefully y'all are tuning in for it.
I did also like what Dan said. Don't start AJ Dillon even if Aaron Jones is out. AJ Dillon looks awful right now. Even though he was the lead back last week, he still didn't put up any good fantasy numbers. The only way I think he's going to really be doing anything is if he's getting touchdowns. But if Aaron Jones is there too, AJ Dillon is kind of dead to me. I do also I'd say one of Jordan Love's touchdowns week 1, I said they all came from the red zone. One was like a 40-yard pass to Aaron Jones. I did forget about that one. But yeah, Love 5 out of 6 touchdowns coming in the red zone. Yeah.
Nice. All right, I think that wraps it. Oh no, we didn't touch on the same side of the ball. We got so obviously starting Chris Olave. Michael Thomas looked good in week 2. He's starting to see more receptions. Looks to be the possession wide receiver.
Yes, he does, Dan. Yes, he does.
Hey, man, I never got on Michael Thomas outside of injury risk.
Hey,
I think Michael Thomas is a great talent.
You are way too high on Michael Thomas.
You are still way too high on Michael Thomas. It's crazy how much faith that you have in Michael Thomas, because especially when we were talking about it, we were talking about dynasty.
You told me you didn't even want him. You didn't even want him. You weren't even interested in the slightest.
Well, yeah, I'm not interested in the slightest in Dynasty. He's an old man. Even through 2 weeks, he's still the wide receiver 52 on the year. Like, he's not putting up numbers. So
clearly, Dan's not a win now in any of his dynasties.
That's my bad. That was standard wide receiver 39, a little bit better. So in PPR, wide receiver 39 on the season. But again, he is not. If he's not in the end zone, he's not going to be winning you any weeks. And there's always the worry that he's going to get injured, especially when you guys got guys like Derek Brown chasing him down to the locker room. Did you guys see that?
I did see that video.
That was so funny. So Mason, after the game, Derek Brown followed him.
He was chasing the smoke. He went into their side of the locker room for that.
Oh, Derek Brown wanted the smoke, of course. Man, he's a monster. He would have chokeslammed Michael Thomas.
Michael Thomas went into their side of the locker room.
No, it was the other way around. Derek Brown chased him down the hall. Michael Thomas is running away, yelling I forget exactly what it was, but like West Coast Crip Gang or some shit like that.
Let's fact check this. I'm gonna move on.
Regardless, Michael Thomas was sprinting away from Derek Brown as he was trying to talk shit. Michael Thomas, you're not tough. I ain't fighting you, but don't talk shit unless you're willing to stand up to some of these boys. I don't blame him though. He probably would have snapped something if he even touched Derek Brown. So still not looking to roster Michael Thomas in Dynasty at all. But in redraft, you can take the shot on him. Just waiting on that injury.
Yeah.
And
All right, that wraps up our side of the ball, though. Oh, I guess Tony Jones Jr. Any interest with him being the only healthy running back on this squad? Unless Kendrick comes back, but I haven't heard any positive reports about that yet.
I don't know. Tony Jones is a risk. Packers defense looks pretty good right now. I'm not sure if Tony Jones had a good week last week. When he came in for Jamal, he had a pretty decent week. That's with it was Panthers. Panthers run defense is not that good. And so, I don't know. Tony Jones is a desperation play, in my opinion. I'm trying to avoid him. I didn't really go after him in any waiver wires.
Really quick, I actually just looked it up. A report came out not too long ago. Kendre Miller did practice in full today. So let's change the pace. What do you guys think about Kendre Miller if he ends up being the starter there?
If Kendre Miller's starting, sit Tony Jones in every scenario.
For sure, sit Tony. But do you think you would be willing to start Kendre first game in the NFL?
I'd be more willing, but
than
I don't
Tony for sure.
The best lineup.
More willing before Kamara comes back. If there's the week to start him, this is kind of it.
Well, yeah, I mean that is true, but that shouldn't weigh into it shouldn't factor when you're looking at your other options. And I just want to get one start before Kamara comes back.
Make him useless. You got to get some use out of him,
Yeah.
No, not in redraft, especially, which is the majority of leagues. So.
That being said, Kendre Miller is also only rostered in 29% of leagues. I might go throw an ad on him right now. I think I'm going to add him to some lineups here. Evan, get out of all 6 of our leagues. Here, I call them.
You can take him, fine. That's fine. Are we playing? Hopefully
you don't
we're
want
playing.
him?
Hopefully we're playing. No, I start him. I'll play next week.
That sounds like a sit then. It sounds like a strong sit from Evan.
I don't. Yeah, desperation play, but no, I wouldn't start him.
But, we didn't touch Evan's QB sit of the week.
Yeah, my QB sit of the week, the guy who put up a whopping 6 points last week that I traded away for Michael Thomas. There was other picks involved too, but I really don't like Derek Carr this week. Especially because have you ever seen a starting quarterback play 90% of the snaps?
Dude, right? Taysom coming in so frequently.
Right? So, I mean, there's always a risk of him, taking a red zone throw. Like he gets an RPO play. Taysom Hill gets an RPO play. He could pass it in the end zone. Derek Carr gets nothing then. He just gets the yards. So I just don't like carrying the risk. He's getting beat up in that backfield too. He's taking some hits. He's an aging guy. There's worry. There's worry there. I'm not starting. I'm not comfortable. There's so many better options. I'd start CJ Stroud. Easy.
Yeah, I hate to say it because Carr is from my hometown, but he looks like the worst he's ever looked, in my opinion.
It's bad.
I think he looked fine in week 1.
Yeah, I mean, he also has some deep threats that are pretty solid at getting open.
Fine is incredibly good. He was looking good. Everybody thought he was going to be exactly what the New Orleans offense needed, and I don't know. I don't know.
Don't get me wrong. I'm also not starting him if I can help it. But and it was against Tennessee in week 1. We talked about the pass funnel defense there, so that could have played a big factor in it. I wouldn't completely write Carr off yet, but definitely not looking to roster him in most leagues. He's just a streamer in a good matchup.
Yeah, no, I agree on that statement.
All right. I think that wraps it up for this game. Moving on, we got Mason covering the next one.
So it's going to be Carolina at Seattle. Seattle is currently favored by 6 with the over-under being 42. As far as the injury report goes for that, we got Bryce Young dealing with an ankle injury. We don't know a ton about it. Mike has kind of said we'll see throughout the week how that's going. I think Bryce Young is going to be playing. The ankle injury obviously could, a lot of times you aren't starting him in 1 QB leagues, but, if you are starting him, the ankle injury will limit his rushing upside.
I think Frank Reich broke his ankle. Like he came in the locker room and goes, Dalton, you're starting.
And then we also got to watch Miles Sanders' knee injury. But yeah, so to move to, we've talked about Carolina. Miles Sanders is someone you're starting if he's healthy. He kind of is the focal point of that offense as Bryce Young is still improving. Miles Sanders is really the only vet that I can rely off of any production. I'm sitting Thielen. I'm sitting any receivers from that. Hurst is a very interesting one. I don't feel safe starting him, but if you're desperate at tight end, Hurst isn't the worst. Chuba Hubbard is honestly someone who's kind of interesting me a little bit. I'm not starting him if Sanders is healthy. If Sanders is out, I will, just because the way that offense is right now. But Hubbard, he had some work in the passing game last week, which actually made him like a not inviolable start. And I think Hubbard is someone you're still sitting this week, unless Sanders is out. But he's someone to watch, definitely over the waivers, because there's some leagues where Chuba is still out there, free agent. It's
I
not
gotta
like
say, this Chuba, man. It's not Chuba Hubbard.
Hey, Chuba Hubbard sounds better, so I'm a
Chuba Hubbard sounds great. Chuba Hubbard
Yeah.
sounds like Forrest Gump's best friend.
Get your little chubby hubby.
Honestly, something, if it wasn't for the ankle injury, I mean, Bryce Young is someone I'm not super pissed off about starting this week. Seattle's defense is not looking very good, and Tariq Woolen, he might be missing this next game too, and he's one of their better DBs, and they've given up more than 30 points 2 games in a row, and so I mean, it's something to watch. It could be Bryce's first real solid fantasy production week.
Yeah, they get their 30th in the league in terms of passing yards allowed per game, 325 through 2 weeks. That being said, I am not starting Bryce Young. What'd you say?
Especially if Tariq Woolen's out. I mean, it's an interesting one. It's not a safe one. It's an interesting one.
Right. It's interesting. There's no way I'm starting him in 1 QB redraft leagues. If you're relying on him in redraft or 2 QB leagues, then I get it a little bit more. But yeah, you couldn't catch me starting pretty much anybody else other than Zach Wilson in week 3.
I mean, if you were a Rodgers relier, you're desperate at QB, he's out there. He might be worth a slot if the other guy you have is a little questionable.
Yep. Only rostered in 35% of leagues.
Yeah.
So if you guys are believers, go for it. I'm personally staying away.
Evan, you got anything to say about the Carolina side of the ball?
I mean, I would kind of, I'm in Dynasty. I have a lot of things to say about it, but not really in redraft.
Yeah.
I like Mingo. 8 targets. 8 targets is not bad. I'd actually, I'd spot start Hurst. I'd start Hurst over Njoku this week. Actually, to be honest, there's a little something.
And it's not something a huge argument against. Like we said, Seattle's pass defense has been pretty poor. Young seems to like.
They had to face Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then they had to face Puka Nacua, who's now a name to be known. But those are tough offenses too. You got to put that in consideration as well.
Yeah. But then switch to the other side of the ball, Seattle. I mean, we're starting DK. We're starting Kenneth Walker. There should be zero question to that. Lockett had a way better week 2 than he did week 1. I will give Dan his props. He was telling everyone to start Lockett last week, and if you listen to him, good stuff. But I mean, besides that, Geno I think is a little questionable. I think I am starting him this week if you don't have a better option, because Carolina's defense is pretty weak. So I think it was a good week for Geno. I'm still sitting JSN, especially with Lockett having a good week. DK still had a solid week too. I think Jason, it's still going to take a little bit for him to really get going. Charbonnet's not showing too much, not enough play time. That could increase as we go. And then a tight end who actually had a really good week last week was Noah Fant. I'm not starting him. They got Disley as well. That tight end room is a little in the air. Noah Fant is a terrible desperation start, but I think there's better tight end options you can pick up there on the waiver wire.
Yeah. If I didn't have Joshua. If Kenneth Walker wasn't so obvious, again, I think he's a pretty obvious start at this point. He would have been my start of the week. Carolina right now giving up 132 yards on the ground. That's 25th in the NFL. I do think he's going to eat. I do think that Geno can also eat as long as he gets a couple touchdowns mixed in there. Generally speaking, he doesn't put up enough numbers without like enough passing yards without the touchdowns to have one of those week winning weeks for you. But like you said, I'm definitely comfortable starting Geno. I do think that most of the players on this offense should be started. If DK Metcalf is out, I think JSN is interesting, but not starting JSN if DK is out there. And it looks like DK is going to be out there too. I should say
Yeah,
that.
no. I mean, he was struggling with the injury during the game and still came back out.
Right.
Had a catch
Exactly.
in the overtime drive. Like I'm not worried about DK even the slightest, really. I mean, obviously there's the little bit of worry, but like no, like
Right.
looking
Agreed.
for
Yeah. Even struggling through the injury, 6 catches, 75 yards. He'll be out there. It's just if there happens to be some weird, I'm sure he's got like the no contact jersey on in practice. I doubt they're going to pop him leading up to this week. But if for some reason he gets that re-aggravated, then I would be interested in JSN.
Yeah, Gino was questionably my QB sit of the week. I actually really don't like him this week. DK is pretty beat up. I don't think he practiced in full today. Gino is, I don't know. He didn't have a great week one. He had a great week two ish, but he's I really drafted him thinking I would have a nice reliable guy. I don't know if he's going to be that for me this year.
I wouldn't give up on him.
I mean, Carolina
like,
defense isn't a joke either. They're not bad. Like teams are not putting up good numbers. Granted, they don't have much comp. They don't have to put up numbers against Carolina because Carolina's not putting up too many numbers against them.
Exactly.
But,
Exactly. Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough.
But that's going to conclude that game unless you guys got anything else to add to it.
I'm set.
All right, I'm taking over here. We're going to Dallas and Arizona. Arizona's plus 12. That's interesting. Then over-under is set at 43.5. We've got the injury report. Brandon Cooks' knee did practice Wednesday. So that is some positive news for Brandon Cooks. Not that anybody should care about that because I'm telling my friends to drop him. But what do you guys think about that? Let's dive into it a little bit after we talk more about Dallas. Start sits. We're going to do Dak, who is Mason. You want to talk about him a little bit?
So I've been very off of Dak this whole season. I want to start with this. I want to apologize. Dak is looking good. Week one, obviously, the game plan was not in favor of Dak, so he didn't put up the best numbers. He had a good production last week. I'm sitting him this week just because of how the game plan is going to go. That Dallas defense is phenomenal. They are scary. Micah Parsons is looking like a man on a mission to win Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, some people are even saying if he keeps this up, he's in MVP talks. And against probably the worst offense in the league, at least bottom 3 offenses in the league, I think they're just going to feed the whole time. Arizona may put up like 10 points max. And I just think it's going to lead to where Dak doesn't need to throw the ball, which is going to lead to him not having the best fantasy performance. And it's not that I'm talking bad about Dak as I usually do, but it's just they're playing the Cardinals. Dallas looks like the best team in the league, honestly, right now, if not, number 2 behind maybe the Niners. But like Dallas looks good where I just don't think they're going to really need to use Dak much this week. And it's nothing against him. It's just really the game plan is going to be poor quarterback fantasy wise.
I get that. I get the thought behind the game script and everything like that. But it's not like they're going to give up throwing the ball by the second half if they're up 20. I would still say start Dak. He's going to be a top 12 guy, in my opinion. It is funny that I think it was like pretty right after the Sunday games ended. You texted us via like, I apologize for my think about Dak. And then here we are about 3 days later. You're like, Dak is my sit of the week.
It's like I said, it's nothing against his play style. I just think they're gonna absolutely roll through Arizona
So
like they have the
understandable.
past 2 weeks.
Right. Pollard
I
be another guy. If it wasn't so obvious, he'd be a start of the week, but like no one's sitting
yeah,
Pollard.
no one's
So
saying Pollard, but I think Dak's performance this week is going to be around what it was week 1. So it's not going to be the worst of the worst, but it's not something that's going to get you excited.
yeah.
I mean, Dak and Pollard will have a connection as well. Pollard doesn't do everything on the ground, so you could get some points through Pollard through the air as well. But we got Pollard. Speaking of Pollard, we got him as well as a start. Lamb as a start, and onto the sits we have Cooks, Gallup, and Jake Ferguson. That would kind of all the sits make sense to me. I think Cook should be off rosters. I think Gallup should be off rosters.
Well, Cooks was out last week. Can't hold that against him. Gallup, on the other hand, had the opportunity with Cooks out and didn't do anything with it. So
Yeah,
if you're holding on to him in redraft, I would let him go.
I don't know. Maybe it's the emergence of what's his name? Oh my God, why can't I?
Jalen Tolbert.
Yes.
Jalen Tolbert, bro. He was one of I loved him coming out of college.
I know it could.
And he had a better week than Gallup last week. So maybe I would love to see that, even though I didn't end up getting him in any leagues. I just want to be right.
Just sit Cooks. Right. You sit Cooks. You're not starting Cooks either way.
Not starting Cooks until you see it.
Yeah, no, I mean it's kind of the receiver situation. Like all the sits were receivers, and then Ferguson. It's going to kind of play off what I said with Dak. I just don't think the passing velocity is going to be there this week to make anybody on that team besides CD worth the start.
Right. Ferguson only had a decent week because he had the touchdown. He didn't. He goes 3 for 11. So pretty rough.
Yeah.
Then moving on to Arizona, unless we got anything else to say. All right. Starting James Conner, Marquise Brown, Zach Ertz, who is Dan?
My sit of the week, I do think Ertz is getting the volume, and that's all great. But right now, just like Mason was talking about, I don't think there's going to be enough time for Dobbs to get the ball out on half of these plays. Even if Ertz is the safety valve, I really just don't see him having any yardage, any true production. If you're in a PPR league, maybe you can fringe start him just because he is getting crazy targets. But I think he's one of those guys that people are starting to look his way. And again, I'm trying to throw the scent off of him. I don't think that Zach Ertz is going to be a guy that you really want to start. Just maybe one of those guys, if you have nobody else, you can start to hope he gets his PPRs his way to like 6-8 points, something around there.
Yeah, and there is a slight emergence of Trey, a second round pick from last year. So I agree with you there. Now we're going to go into my sit of the week. We got Marquise Brown. He put up crappy numbers, shit numbers week 1. And then week 2, he finally, gets the targets of wide receiver 1, but catches half of them and gets, kind of barely over 50 yards. So nothing special there for Marquise Brown. I think every team that's had him, like Baltimore, wanted him to be their wide receiver 1. Arizona wants him to be their wide receiver 1, and he's not able to fulfill those needs. And I also see the emergence of Michael Wilson coming. Really high on Michael Wilson this year, so that's definitely a factor to it as well.
Yeah, just like you were saying, Marquise Brown, not a number 1 wide receiver. I think he's a great wide receiver 2 for a team. But until they go get Marvin Harrison Jr. next year, I think that Marquise not worth starting, especially until Kyler comes back.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see Marquise Brown really doing anything. Even what he did last week, it wasn't the greatest. It was respectable numbers. The Giants' defense is terrible. I think that's the only reason why Arizona really got that offense kind of weak is because Giants their defense looks pretty bad, and it's something that we kind of it might be Giants defense is so bad that whoever they're playing every week might be a streaming option. Purdy could be a very good streaming option this week just because that Giants defense is
where were you an hour ago when I was saying he was a fringe starter?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, well, I know, but now I'm thinking about it more of just how bad the Giants really are. Yeah, I mean, honestly, the only guy I'm confidently starting on the Arizona Cardinals is James Conner, and that's just because the workload he gets.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, we moving on to Chicago, Dan?
Yes, sir. So we got Chicago going up against KC. This is the biggest spread of the week, understandably so. 12.5 point spread, 47.5 point over under. There's going to be a lot of points scored on one side of the ball. I think you can confidently start. I mean, obviously, Mahomes and Kelsey. I think Pacheco, if he plays, you can confidently start. Right now, it's looking like he's got a hamstring injury. This is new. So keep your eye on that. I don't know the level of this hamstring injury. Definitely keep your eye on the injury report for that. That being said, if Pacheco does sit out with an injury, are you guys confident enough to start either McKinnon or CEH? And which one would you start?
Mm,
Uh,
McKinnon.
yeah, I would probably go McKinnon as well. And I'm not super confident in any of them. The only thing that does give me confidence is that Kansas City, they should be running through Chicago. Chicago's looked awful. They should be running the ball more, try to establish that right now. And it might be
Yeah.
the week for them to really see what that backfield can do.
Yeah. Yeah. I personally would lean CEH just because of what you said. I think CEH gets more on the ground and still has some pass catching ability, so he could be used in both aspects where they have not used McKinnon on the ground. So I personally would lean CEH. Again, I'm not happy starting them, but if you're running into some running back injuries, let's say you have the same running backs I got on my dynasty roster, CEH is available. Let's see here. CEH is available in 83% of leagues on Sleeper. So you can go and grab him. I think he's worth a spot start if Pacheco does miss time. That being said, more of the injuries. Kadarius Toney right now he's got a toe injury, and Richie James has an MCL. If both of them miss, I could see Sky Moore being a boomer bust second flex play. Again, not a guy that I'm relying on. Not a guy I'm thinking is going to be putting up great numbers, but he could get the boom if both of those guys are out. And then to wrap up the injuries, Darnell Mooney does have a knee injury. He's likely to play though. Um, so we have we already went through the starts. Would you guys start anybody else other than Mahomes, Kelsey, and Pacheco if he's healthy?
Well, I just got to say, Pacheco is my RB start of the week if he is healthy.
Interesting.
Just because
Yeah.
I think the game plan is going to be great for him.
Right.
When he is healthy, he should really be the top running back in that room.
Absolutely.
But yeah, no, I mean, I love Pacheco this week if he's healthy, even though the hamstring is a little worrying. The pass, Mahomes has not looked the best so far, so I mean, they might decide to pen more on the running game.
Yeah. I mean, it's still the Chiefs. It's still
It's
Mahomes. I think that they don't. Yeah, I don't think they'll lean away from the passing game. That's their bread and butter. But I do agree that Pacheco is going to be a great start with the game script. The hamstring injury has me a little worried. If they go up big, they could pull Pacheco just to get him more healthy for week 4. But I do think that if he's fully healthy, great start of the week. On the Bears side of the ball, I'm sorry, Evan, did you say you were going to start anybody else?
No.
Okay. Bears side of the ball, we have Justin Fields. I have as my start of the week. Another guy that looking pretty bad through the first 2 weeks. I'm again inspiring a little bit of confidence to the people that have rostered him. He's going to be passing the ball nonstop. That is not saying that he's going to put up great passing numbers. I just think that this is going to open up a lot of scrambling opportunities, opportunity for him to break off 1, 2 big runs against this team. Even if it comes in garbage time, those points still count. So I personally have Justin Fields as a strong start. I think DJ Moore still should be relied on as a starter. And then Cole Kmet is more questionable to me. Again, you don't need much from the tight end position to get into that top 12. And he has been getting targets. He's got 13 targets through 2 weeks, 9 catches for 82 yards. Has yet to find the end zone, but I think that in a pass heavy game script, He could be leaned on. Kind of the same argument for this upcoming guy, Roshan Johnson. Evan, I know you got something to say about him.
Absolutely. I do think this is going to be a passing game script, and he is the guy that you want in the backfield. Justin Fields wants in the backfield on those passing downs. He's a great pass protector, and he's showing promise in the receiving game. He broke off for a nice run for 30 yards last week. Didn't get a ton of carries, but I think as he continues to prove himself, the amount of carries he gets, the team trusts him with, is going to increase. And I think that starts this week against a not too scary Kansas City defense.
Yeah, he's looked great on the ground. He's only got 9 attempts on the ground, but he has 52 yards. That's over 5 a clip, near 6 a clip. So definitely looking efficient. And like you said, he gets the passing downs work, which we should see a lot of. So, Mason, what do you think about Roshan?
I like Roshan. I honestly, I like starting him as my RB2. I don't think it's a bad play just because the passing volume's there. I think he's really going to start emerging as that RB1 in that backfield. Obviously, Herbert's got some breakaway skill, but I don't think Herbert is really a guy that you're looking as the Bears are looking as their franchise guy by any means. Deontay Foreman's kind of dropping off the face of the world.
Healthy scratch in week 2.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I think that really shows that they're confident in Roshan. I do want to more comment on Justin Fields. I'm still not worried about starting him though. He's had some shaky weeks. The rushing upside's still there. The play calling is very questionable in Chicago. That's what worries me. I mean, they ran 3 screen plays in a row from within their own 10. What are you doing? And it led to that pick.
Not creative.
A terrible throw by Fields, by the way.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. But yeah, last year, I think it was after 4 weeks, they made a big adjustment. Yeah. So I'm really hoping they do the same thing this year. Still have faith, but agreed that he's been looking pretty bad through 2 weeks. Outside of that, I think that pretty much covers it. The Bears sits, I think, are pretty obvious. Right now, Herbert is the rushing back. I don't think they're going to have the game script to do that. I'd be sitting him. And then Darnell Mooney, even though he's likely to play right now as the wide receiver 2 on a questionable passing offense, I'm not looking to start him. But he could have one of those big boom plays downfield, big deep threat for the team. But yeah, definitely not looking to start Mooney if I can help it.
Yeah, no, he's a big boom.
Yeah, massive boom bust. That's it though. But that wraps up that game. We're moving on to the Sunday night game. Mason, take it away.
So we got Pittsburgh in Las Vegas. Vegas is favored by 2.5 right now, with the over/under being 43.5. It's probably going to be a pretty low-scoring game. I honestly don't even see it touching that 43.5. And obviously we got Deontay Johnson out, hamstring injury. No surprise at all. Jacoby Myers, he had the concussion injury. That's a little more questionable. I'd be leaning more towards him been playing. Devontae Adams also picked up a concussion injury. He's back at practice. I'm not too worried about that injury either. I think Myers and Devontae will be there this week. Either way, if one of them is out, I think the other one is a lock-in at starting. I mean, Devontae's a lock-in at start no matter what. Stay on the Raiders side of the ball for the starts. We got Devontae, obviously, Jacoby Myers if he's healthy. I'm still starting Josh Jacobs, even though he carried the ball 9 times, I think, last week and got -2 rushing yards. His day was entirely saved by his receiving production. I think he'll continue to show that receiving production, which will make it up for. He's had 2 horrible weeks of rushing the ball, which I'm a little worried on that. But as long as they're throwing in the ball, Josh Jacobs is a must start. And in my opinion, especially in PPR leagues, if you're not in a PPR league, Josh Jacobs is. You might start to get a little worried and be looking for other options, trades to get other RBs. But yeah, no, I'm still starting Josh Jacobs in the games. I mean, I'm sitting Jimmy Garoppolo, especially this week. The Pittsburgh defense got smoked week 1, week 2 looked decent. Or, it's the point of you're not. Jimmy is a streaming quarterback. It's not the week to stream him. He does bad under pressure. TJ Watt is looking back to form, which is going to provide a lot of pressure to Garoppolo. Make him make some poor decisions like he does under pressure. And then, of course, we're sitting both their tight ends. Neither of them are looking too good. Mayer's still disappointing everybody who had hope for him. But then just switch it up to we're going to go quick. Just want to switch it up to the Pittsburgh side of the ball. I'm starting Pickens. Pickens he had some big plays. He looked a lot better this week than did week 1. I mean, the whole offense looked better week 2 than it did week 1. And with Deontay out, I think Pickens is going to be a good option. He didn't get as many catches as we would be wanting, but he did have the big play that made his day very good. But I think, he's going to be that consistent 5 catches a game, 4 or 5 catches a game. He's going to be providing, he's a good flex option. He's not someone you want as your wide receiver 1 or 2. Do think he's a good flex option. Then the backfield, Najee and Warren, the whole entire running back situation there, it's really sketchy right now. They're splitting the ball too much. Neither one of them looks overpoweringly good. I'm still starting Najee, but not confidently anymore.
Yeah.
The Steelers' O-line is not good. It's not good.
Najee without the pass catching work is just it's frightening, man.
He's getting pass catching work. He's gotten 4 receptions, but he's gotten 1 yard.
Yeah.
2 yards. 2 yards actually.
He's only going to get the ball when Pickett is
just 3 catches.
Yeah, but he's gotten 5 targets. That's more than.
That's nothing.
Yeah. Over 2 games, it's not that.
3 catches in 2 games. If this was like Nick Chubb or Derrick Henry, we'd be talking about the running game's great, but they're not getting the pass.
He got 8 carries and 2 targets. So he's not getting a lot of work that first week, anyways. Proportionately, that's.
But that was also the game plan, though, as well. Why he wasn't getting the touches.
I think he should be doing more with those receiving work he is getting. Is what I'm saying, basically. He's getting.
Yeah, he definitely should be doing more with it.
Even worse with what he's doing with it.
Right. Hopefully he puts up big numbers here if you're Najee roster. Hopefully he puts up big numbers here so he holds on to the role because he's got the Raiders and the Texans in the next 2 weeks. Not looking to trade for him because I don't believe in him after that. But maybe a guy that if you see dip in DFS for his price could be worth starting. Probably one of those bracket buster guys where you see everybody else in the tournament leaning one way, and maybe you can pick up a guy that is not highly taken in these DFS plays. But I am steering away from him if I can. Jaylen Warren looks so much more explosive.
So much better.
There was 2 plays in the Browns game where he single-handedly just took over on a long 3rd down and willed his way to pick up the first. So I personally am trying to pick up Jaylen Warren where I can, and then hoping that this just continues for Najee and Warren eventually takes over.
But yeah, as far as the sit side goes, for the Steelers, I'm sitting A-Rob. He seemed to be their wide receiver 2, got 2 catches for 12 yards. Poor thing. And I'm sitting Freiermuth. Through 2 games, he has 2 catches for a total of 5 yards.
Yep.
Got it.
Completely agreed.
I'm not trusting any receiver, tight end, anyone on that team besides Pickens. Pickens is the only one I'm putting any faith in right now. Everyone else looks completely Pickens. The receiver Pickens. The quarterback Pickett, don't start him. He low-key sucks.
Yeah. Pickens is my only lock on this team right now. As long as Deontay's out, Pickens is going to get some targets. Like we talked about earlier in the year, he's kind of shown that it doesn't matter if he gets as much separation as other wide receivers in the league. So I think Pickens is the only lock. Calvin Austin's interesting because of his speed, but again, not looking to rely on him.
No.
Then, that's really going to be it. You missed it, Dan. We already went over Raiders.
That's all good. Pretty obvious there.
Really
Adams
obvious.
and Jacobs, you start him. Myers, if he's healthy, I would start him. Everybody else can suck it.
Yeah.
All right. We're taking the show to Philly and Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is
Monday Night
+5.
Football.
And then we got the over-under set at 45.5. On the injury report, we have Kenneth Gainwell for the ribs. No practice. And, a little bit worried about that. I especially with Swift doing so well, I think he's going to take over the backfield. But I'm speaking of Swift. We're starting Hurts. We are pop up. We are starting AJ Brown, starting Devonta Smith, starting Dallas Goddard, and I'm starting Swift. I'm completely fine with that. And not sitting anybody. Not sitting anybody in this offense. Powerful offense. You got to start everybody. What do you guys think?
I think Swift is a must start as long as Gainwell's out. If Gainwell comes back, you might go in a little worries, but if Swift is not used this next week like he was last week, Philly fans will be so pissed at Nick Sirianni. And so you got to think about that. I think Swift, you can't not use a guy after what he did last week. So I think he's a good start this week.
Right. If Gainwell's out, he's going to get the volume, so I would start him. If Gainwell's in, Tampa Bay's a good run defense. They have been for years. First 2 weeks of the year, only allowed 54 rushing yards per game. That is second in the league only to their opponents, Philadelphia. That being said, it's strength against strength. Philadelphia heading into the year had the number 1 PFF ranked offensive line. So it'll be a fun battle in the trenches. I would still start Swift as a flex play if Gainwell's back. But I do expect them, if Gainwell's fully healthy, to start seeing more of an even split, which is going to drive fantasy managers mad. But that being said, he looked good. He looked like his old self. He's still explosive. They don't pass to the running back, but he still has pass catching ability. Just that if Gainwell's in, really lower those expectations.
Yeah.
Obviously, start AJ Brown. He had a rough week, but
of course, yeah, for sure.
You got moving on to Tampa Bay start sets. We got starting Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, sitting Baker Mayfield, Kate Otten, Rashad White. I don't know. I think you got to start Rashad White, and I think you got to start Baker as well. But going off the list here,
you're starting Baker.
I would start Baker. I would start Baker over Geno.
In one Q.
I have Geno in that one league. I would start Baker over Geno this week. Yeah.
We're starting a new sticky note. You willing to take that bet too?
Actually, Philly is really tough though. I don't know. Don't write down. Pencil that one in. Pencil that one in. Pencil that one in.
The truth reveals itself.
Pencil that one in.
I mean, yeah, but Baker is looking good. I mean, I'm not.
You can pen it in for the rest of the season. Pen it in for the rest of the season.
Deal. I'll take that. 10 times
Pencil in for this week though. Jalen Carter looks like a monster, but we got one game left. Let's we got anything else to say about Tampa Bay?
I mean, I think Rashad White is going to be a very hit or miss guy. If you have to start him at your RB position, I'm not mad about it. It's something that I don't know. He was really inefficient week 1. It was great fantasy wise week 2. I think I'm still starting White, but to have my full confidence, I'm going to need a little bit more.
I don't have the faith in them. Like we said, the only team better at stopping the run than the Bucs is Philly. So I'm not looking to start them. The Bucs are really inefficient on the ground. He did have a good week 2, but outside of that week 2, he looked really bad in week 1. Inefficient on the ground last year. So if he's not getting the 5 receptions that he got last week, he's gonna have an incredibly low floor. So I'm sitting him personally. But that being said, you might run into some running back injuries and you might have to start him. So.
All right, take it away, Dan.
All right, so for our last game, we did it, boys. We made it. We got the Rams against the Bengals. Bengals are 1.5-point favorites. The over/under is 43.5. I think it's only this low because the Bengals have been looking pretty questionable on offense. Now Burrow's got a nagging calf injury coming back from the preseason. There was a report saying that he's feeling better after aggravating the calf injury. We'll see if that proves to be true. You're still on the Bengals. You're still starting Chase, still starting Higgins, still starting Mixon. Those guys are going to be hard to get out of your lineup, even if you got some better options. You drafted them too high at this point in the season. We're still starting those guys, waiting for them to get back on track. But for the Bengals, I'm sitting Irv Smith Jr., even though he's had a promising in comparison to expectation start of the year. And I'm also sitting Tyler Boyd after a decent week 2. Any disagreements there, boys?
Nope.
No,
We all
I'm
good?
just waiting for Chase to do something though.
Dude, right?
He's looking
My
like one of the worst ADPs we've seen in a while.
I'm so mad about
yeah.
that.
Yeah, in my work league, after the second week, a guy it's a 10-team league, and he's like, "I'm done with Chase. Who wants him?" So I'm offering Jonathan Taylor for him, and he's interested. So I am trying to get that trade done. Might have to throw in a guy like Marquise to get it done, but I'm
You
still
should do
hopeful.
that. You should do
Yeah,
that.
1000% gonna do that if I can. Take advantage of frustrated managers. Also, after week 1 in our dynasty league, I traded KJ Osborne for Sky Moore, a second round pick, and a fourth round pick. Couldn't ask for a better trade. As KJ could have a better first 6 weeks of the season, but I personally would have taken the trade straight up, and then throwing in a second on it. I also would have done just KJ for a second. So
Insult. It's insulting to the league. I was
yeah, Evan was pissed. All right. Getting off of my own team, though, moving on to the Rams. It's way obvious who the starts are here. Puka's proven himself already. He's looking great. I think he's going to have value when Cup comes back. I touched on it on the waiver episode, but in week 1, Puka ran over 70% of his routes from the outside. Uh, Cooper Cup has never ran less than 55% of his snaps from the slot in any season he's played. I think both of them are going to coexist. I think when Cup gets back, Tutu's the odd man out. That being said, I would be willing to flex Tutu, especially if the Bengals figure it out and start putting up numbers. This could be a fun shootout. Um, would you? And then I would also start Stafford as a back end QB1. Um, those two guys, though, how are you feeling about Tutu and Stafford against the Bengals this week?
Tutu, I like as a flex play as well. I can't figure out what to do with Kyron because I have a team where the only team I was able to pick him up, I'm absolutely loaded at running back, and I don't know if do I start him over Aaron Jones. Tough questions, but yeah,
Trade him to me.
I like I like Stafford too. He's doing a lot better than I thought he would do this year, so he's proven me wrong. And yeah, I think I'd ride with him too.
I think he's proven everybody wrong. I don't. After last season, he did not look good, but he's looked a little bit like his old self.
But the Higby
Mason, what are you thinking, though?
Stafford, if you're streaming, if you're streaming QBs, if he's there and you could get Stafford, I think it's a good start. He's been looking pretty good. We thought he would struggle without Cup, but he's found himself his new number one, at least for now. Puka is killing it for him. He might be helping Stafford out a lot because, he's just finding ways to get open. But yeah, Kyron, I want to more comment on him. Kyron's yards per carry is nothing amazing or anything like that, but he is definitely the red zone guy. So as long as this offense stays, high powered as it is, they put up 23 against Niners, which have one of the best defenses in the league. And if this offense stays efficient and pretty high powered, I think Kyron's a start. He has to be because as long as they're scoring, he's going to be scoring.
Right. All of the arguments we had for Cam Akers in the offseason of him just being the guy because no one's behind him are now even more prevalent with Cam Akers gone. They only have Zach Evans and Royce Freeman behind him right now. So he's looking good. He played 95% of the snaps in week 2, 10 targets, 6 receptions. If he keeps on getting this passing work on top of it, he could be a top 15 back if he keeps up this passing work. But yeah, we'll see how that goes moving forward. Maybe they add some depth. The only other questionable sit start guy is Tyler Higbee. I think everyone's kind of lost the faith that he's going to be the leaned on while Cooper Cup is out. I did think personally that he was going to be a solid guy to pair with a guy like Kyle Pitts. Uh, I don't think anybody expected Puka Nacua to get 35 targets in the first 2 weeks. I definitely thought some of that would be divvied up towards Tyler Higbee, but right now, not looking like it. And without the volume, he is an unathletic old tight end who I am not starting.
I'm not starting anymore.
Solid. All right. So that wraps up the previews Really quick, we're running long, so I'm not gonna to go on this for too long. I just want to do this each week. We have our individual. It's like a 10 to 15 minute waiver wire thing. We're each gonna take turns doing it throughout the season. So really quick, I brought up 10 guys last week. Those 10 guys, some of the hits from last week: Gus Edwards, RB22; Kyron Williams, RB2; Puka Nakua, wide receiver 2; Josh Reynolds. That's right, Evan. Josh Reynolds, wide receiver 9; Logan Thomas, tight end 10. Some of the mid hits: Jordan Love did put up 20.3 points. It was a good week for quarterbacks, so he was QB 16 on the week. Kendrick Bourne, I only have on as a mid-level pick because I told specifically everyone in the video, do not start him. Pick him up. He's a stash. I still think he's a stash. He's still leading as the wide receiver 1 in routes, but wait for him to show some consistency. Hayden Hurst, we touched on. I said the same exact thing. Don't start him until he shows consistency, but think he's decent enough to have on the back end of your roster. Kenneth Gainwell didn't play. Mac Jones was so moving on to the misses. Mac Jones, we already talked about Joshua Kelly. That was a hard miss, 3.9 points, RB51. Adam Troutman goosed me. Won't bring up his name from here on out. And then the Giants defense, thought that would have been a good play. -1 points against a terrible Cardinals offense. Joshua Dobbs was even trucking over men. So that wraps up that. Last thing we got is the question of the day. No one gave us an answer today, but we have: how many running backs have 500 rushing yards and 500 receiving yards in the same season over the past 3 years? The answer: 5 running backs have done that. The answers were Christian McCaffrey last year, Eckler last year and the year before, Fournette, Alvin Kamara. Any guesses? 2021, 2 seasons ago, who would be the last guy that did it? Definitely a sleeper in comparison to the other 4 backs I mentioned. You guys have any guesses? I'll give you a hint. He's an old man. Resurgence. It's all right if you don't.
It's Cordarrelle.
Yeah. Oh, you looked it up, didn't you, you son of a bitch?
Yeah, I looked it up.
I heard the clicking. Get a quieter mouse. All right, man. It was a great episode. We're gonna try to get it under 2 hours next week. We're doing our best, but we want to give you guys the best information out there. We're looking to have you guys subscribe if you made it this far. It's been 2 hours and 22 minutes. If you've made it this far, please do like and subscribe to the channel. Really does help us out a ton. But until next week, hope you guys have good lucks in all of your matchups, except for Evan. Peace out.
17-5 across all my leagues, just so you know.